Guys, and welcome to Little Blackbird 91. It's a Wednesday night, which means we have the UK Super Panel. We're here talking to you guys about, well, our main topic will be why do men avoid dating women bosses? I've got a video, yes, a little video that we can discuss some real issues. So, why do men avoid dating women bosses? But in the meantime, we'll also discuss a little bit about Jeannie Mai. Or Jeannie Mai, I always pronounce her name wrongly. But her and her situation with Jeezy. Why do we care? Why is it so many people are so invested in that relationship? Maybe we can talk a little bit about as well Tiana Taylor and Iman as well, because they've also going through a divorce at the same time. So there's quite a few people going through this particular time period at the moment. So before you go anywhere, guys, before we start doing any conversations, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for the notifications of the uploads. Yes, we want to help you. I want you guys to help me get to 100K by the end of this year. It's an ambitious target, but you know what? We like ambition. Okay, the ladies like ambition too, so we're gonna stick by it. Okay, all right. So if you're returnees as well, make sure you like, share, subscribe. And also, as well, don't forget the streets are hot, so stay hydrated as well. What is Jay doing? He looked so dark on the cover a second ago. He looked like he was coming from the boat fresh. All right, cool. Let's get this conversation. Let's get in conversation. Let's get this conversation. So, just backstage, we were just quickly talking about Jeannie Mai, and her situation with Jeezy, and it's crazy because so many people have different views on the Jeezy and Jeannie Mai situation. Wanted to get you guys' thoughts before we get into our main body of conversation. What you guys think of it? Because I'll be honest with you, the Jeannie Mai, Jeezy situation. Men don't usually file for divorce. It's women usually file for divorce. So to hear a man file for divorce, usually it's either the woman cheated or she done something very foul to make him want a divorce because he got a prenup in place too. Okay, so I'm just wondering. But Precious, you were saying some stuff behind the scenes. Talk to us about your impressions with the Jeannie Mai. I'm a genie in a bottle. Talk to us.
You are gonna refuse to say her name properly. I could tell. No, do you know what it is? I'm shocked at how many people care about Jeannie Mai and Jeezy because I never really thought people cared like that about them. Like I didn't think they were that popular, but clearly a lot of people love them as a couple. I was just saying that like it's just kind of sad because obviously there's a child involved, and it at least I've been watching the real since the beginning, since the first season, and so Jeannie has seemed to come a long way from who she was in the beginning of that show to who she is now, and at least she's talked a lot about her journey with therapy and trying to heal from like past traumas and things that would have affected her marriage, her first marriage. And clearly when you watch the real and you watch the interaction she had with her ex-husband, clearly that marriage was breaking down quite a long time into it. But it's interesting to see. It's interesting that he was the one that filed for divorce. I can't imagine Jeannie cheating, but then I don't know the woman, so you never know. But I'm going to assume that it was because I think there's rumors saying that basically they had different expectations of what family was going to be like and what the marriage was going to be like, which is bizarre because you think that would be something that you would have talked about before you got married. And I remember in on the real, Jeannie always was saying that they used to have so much like conversation about what the relationship would look like, what they wanted, what they envisioned, what was the vision for their relationship. So if anything, I can only assume that maybe it was like a leadership tussle, maybe. I know that Jeannie May is very like independent, and she's very much somebody who is focused, and there's expectations that come with what she wants for her life. So it might have been a situation where maybe she wanted to slow some things down, he wanted to speed things up, who knows. I do know that she did suffer from some postpartum anxiety, and that could have affected their relationship too. That does tend to affect relationships, unfortunately. So that could be something that could have played a part in. I know they were separated for a while before he filed for divorce, so it wasn't like it was completely out of nowhere. But yeah, it's just a bit bizarre because they did seem to make sense. They seem to get along. They seem to be quite compatible. They seem to, you know, happen quite naturally. I know that obviously she's received some flack about her dark meat comments. And I remember when she first said that, it was interesting. But when you watch in the context of the TV of the episode, it hits differently. But yeah, I can understand why people took it in the way that in a way, at least it sounded. So, but it's interesting to see that all of these things are coming back up because now they've divorced. But you know, that's the internet for you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I know Kojo is ready to bring out the art, the AK-47 on the situation. I can see in his eyes already.
I'm not involved. I don't know my stuff. Anyone else wanted to chime in there, chip in there about the Jeannie Mai situation?
I will, but I want to hear what the ladies have to say first, because I want to hear this perspective, because Precious, but yeah, I want to hear this perspective of how the ladies see this going on, because we've heard a lot of the men. Some ladies agree with the men, but I want to hear what the ladies have to say first.
I'll jump in. I think my understanding is I used to watch the reel from the beginning, but I kind of stopped watching it towards the end, and those that watched it will probably know it kind of kind of trailed a little bit. So my understanding is that Jeannie, you know, she was always saying she's not going to get, she's not going to have a child, right? And that might have been a big factor in her first marriage and getting a divorce. So her then having a child with Jeezy was pretty big. And to be honest, the way she described it is that he made her feel safe enough to have a child and kind of like unlocked that desire in her. So I think for me, that is why I was like, oh, divorce? Like, whoa. I thought this was like a safe and stable space. So that was really interesting. Obviously, dynamics change, right? I didn't know, and I don't know if it was widely known that they had separated for a while, but I didn't know that. And I know that on her Instagram, she had that post praying with her child with like the book positioned and including the prayers for daddy and stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen her Instagram post praying with her child. So that all seemed really homely and sweet and together and of one mind. So I don't know. To me, it did look like a bit of a blindside, but then if they've been separated, it kind of makes that's like a logical progression to separate then divorce. So it might just be they're not sharing it entirely, like with the public and with people, which obviously makes sense. In terms of some of the things Precious said, that some interesting perspectives in terms of like leadership, because I also think leadership becomes more significant when there's more people to lead. And the dynamic of a family changes when you bring a child into it. So, especially given that she wasn't planning to have children, was she ready for that dynamic shift? Yes, she may have felt safe, and that's like an emotional, like, oh, okay, I feel safe. But then it's not just an emotional preparation to have a child. Like, it will change the dynamic of what happens in the home and how things happen. So, that's a factor. I mean, when I used to see them together, it seemed like her family accepted him as well. Like they were blending that cultural aspect quite well. So I don't know. I am a bit shocked because it did just seem like they had kind of taken good steps, and then there was that spiritual aspect as well. They both are. My understanding is that they're both spiritual people as well. So it just seemed like they had all the ingredients. I don't know. Sometimes if you cook it poorly, it doesn't quite turn out the way we expect. I don't know, but I definitely think like it had potential. So I am kind of shocked where it's led to.
Good points. Thank you. So I thought Jay was going to jump in, but maybe he was waiting for Charlene. Charlene, if you're there, I don't know. I know you're
I am here. I was waiting on you.
Sorry.
Do you know what? I don't have anything to contribute just yet on top of what the ladies have already said. But if there's a question on the table, I'd love to respond to that.
Okay. Hear that? Jay, what's your thoughts? You're muted, bro.
I'm just trying to stick to what she said herself. you know, because as we always do it and it's fine, but this is a situation where, you know, how people view this is based on what's already out there rather than what we don't know. And, you know, in the beginning, she herself said she married her first husband, because he reminded her of her dad. So that was a different dynamic in terms of, you know, safety there, in terms of, okay, this man is protective, you know, he will never cheat on me, he will never do A, B, C, I'm here. And she said herself that the only reason why they get separated was because of the child issue. It was nothing else. In fact, what she said was, she told him before they got married, she probably doesn't want children ever. And he was okay with it at the time. But as they grew into their marriage, they was married for quite a while, he began to, you know, feel like, I want to have children, whereas she still didn't. And although they still loved each other, they then, what she actually said, they had to wait on God to decide, you know, okay, where do we go from here? They decided to separate. 6 months after the separation, that's when his girlfriend was pregnant. So yeah, when that woman came along, who knows? But we know usually what happens. I mean, Precious outside the live chat said he probably cheated. I mean, in those scenarios, I mean, there's usually a crossover, so that's a bit techie right there. But either way, you know, she never displayed after that she felt betrayed or anything. You know, she just moved on, you know, from that situation. And also, we did see the disrespect while they were still married on the show, in terms of how she addressed him and everything like that. But, you know, that's all done and dusted. Then now we look at the Jeezy situation. I think they met at a show or somewhere. And when I was listening to some commentary of people who actually know her, what they said was, she's a very beautiful and very intelligent person, but she's a chameleon. Not in a bad way that she's changing her identities, but she knows how to, what's the word I'm looking for? Acquiesce or assimilate to who she's talking to. So when she's around Asians, she can be that Asian. When she's around white people, she can be that white person. Like when they used to see her around her first husband, and she'd be very Christian-like, whereas that's not really her core. When she's around black people, she can be just like a black person. And in Vietnam, what she said is, like, in that circle, they, in knowing her properly, they say only a black man can handle her. Because the conversation is, this attitude that you're admitting has always been there because of your childhood, because of your family. So you marrying the type of man that you was with, he didn't address it in a way that maybe Jeezy did. So now we come to Jeezy, and, you know, what she said was the love that she had with Jeezy was completely different than what she had before. I remember her crying on the reel, saying, wow, like this is something completely I've never experienced, being loved in this way. And it makes me kind of think, how was I loved before? And that I understand. I do pray that everyone receives that type of love that makes them question whether they was loved properly before, because it's something special. And, you know, in that situation, she said, I don't mind, because it made her see things completely differently. And, you know, these are the facts. So as people, what we're assuming is that Jeezy, you know, divorced her because of her attitude that she admits that she had. And that's even minimizing, you know, what it is. But it goes into the same vein as, I need a man to put me in my place, because that's effectively what she said. I need a man to put me in my place. I didn't really have that before. I didn't really have a man that checked me to the point where I looked myself in the mirror, and at 40, whatever years old, I had to realize that I have anger issues and where it comes from. So I don't know if she did do counseling, but it didn't work. Up until the point, what, a year, 2 years ago, that's when she started to realize, okay, I need to change. But as to why Jeezy got divorced, I have no idea. Every comment that's out there, it's all about what the divorce actually says. I don't know how it is in the US, but in the UK, you have to put down 5 reasons, and it's usually on the document. And just reading the document in terms of the divorce, none of that is there. It's just the perimeters, which comes to the what do you call it, the prenup and etc. Which, by the way, he got her to sign it a day before the actual wedding, which is a problem, because it means that if she really wants to challenge it, it's not going to be as strong in court as it would if she signed it 6 months before. So in this situation, I see what's going on. I don't have too much energy for Jeannie Mai. I don't know the situation. However, the narrative is really based off her attitude, her character, privately and behind the scenes, and public displays of disrespect to her husband, which ultimately she will never do to a man like Jeezy. So, you know, it'll be quite interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's for me. I think just even listening to you guys just speak about it, I think something added extra for me about the Jeannie situation is that it's my precise point, which I always say first and foremost, which is if she's been doing this behavior for 10 years, where she's been getting away with it, why did Jeezy think that it's going to change because he's a man and he's a different type of man? He's got to be accountable too, right? If you've been doing something for 10 years. And you tell us openly that you were disrespecting your husband, you didn't think he was equal to you, you called him a Mitch on national television. I just need you to deep that. There are levels of disrespect. Once I see that, I'm never going to trust you. I'm sorry, that's my personal opinion. I'm going to be real honest with you. If I see you disrespect a man in that particular way, I don't care how strong of a man I am. I'm thinking to myself, one day that's going to be me. One day it's going to be me. You know what I mean? So I don't know why he thought that behavior would change. Not only that, this goes into alignment with what I always say, which is that when women say, oh, I just need the right kind of man and I'm going to, you know, I will be able to behave myself. I won't be rude. I won't be disrespectful. Yeah. If you've been practicing the JJ behavior, you're going to continue the JJ behavior in the relationship, whether you're safe or not. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I just seen that. It's what Seaway said. I just literally watched the video. Funky didn't even tell us what happened. Apparently, she moved her family in, and he ain't about it. But again, that will go back to what I said about the assertiveness, right? About her just choosing to do something. I don't know how well she plays when it comes to leadership. I don't know how well she plays. She's a, and it goes into our topic actually. She's a female boss. She's always done her own thing. You know, talking about obviously how she grew up as well, the mistrust that she has with her family, because obviously how she was abused when she was younger too. That creates a very independent individual and soul. You know, you've then tying the 10 years of you disrespecting your husband, a previous husband beforehand, not really being able to respect him. And then this whole I didn't know I had anger until I met Jeezy is absolute bollocks. I'm so sorry. And that's when you realize that person has been living in a lie and living in a coots. Because you're telling me that your whole entire life from the last decade or more, your mum ain't told you, your husband ain't told you, none of your people told you how your problematic behavior, your anger is until you got to Jeezy. And then in that video, she actually comes out and says, you know, because I respected Jeezy, that's the reason why I looked at my own behavior. He never told me it was a problem. So he never told you it was a problem, but you wouldn't decide to look at your own behavior and thought it was a problem. Yeah, you see when someone's bugging? Yeah, you bugging. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That ain't going to change overnight. That ain't going to change because you are a better person. That ain't going to change because a man is solid and the man is patient and the man is enduring and the man's loving. It ain't going to change. Now, I'm not saying Jeezy is innocent because let me tell you this now. His history record is not looking very good. Okay, so he ain't the perfect candidate. But what I am saying is that there are a lot of behaviors in there that are a little bit suspect within that. And to be honest, y'all know, and that's why I did a whole video on it. He would never accept this from a black woman. I'm being real with you. I just don't think he would ever accept it. You know what I mean? But we're here, Sha. You know what I mean? We're here. So yeah, if anyone else wants to jump in and add another 2 penny pence.
I wanted to say something actually about you know, the whole thing of no one checked her about her anger, because I listened to her say that earlier this week, and it struck me that you can live in a culture where everyone's like you. It's not only acceptable, it's how everybody in your family just is. And it doesn't, it may not click to people around you why you are the way that you are until they hang out with you and your family. And then they realize that your mother's like that. So is your auntie and your grandmother. Everybody's like that. And there may be a thing in the family where the women in particular are spicy. Do you know what I mean? And they call it spicy rather than rank. Do you know what I mean? And so when I listened to her say, I didn't know, and I went unchecked, that's what it made me think of, because it's not going to be a problem until it's a problem. And now it is. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I agree. I think also she, from what I've seen on her on the reel, she is somebody who's very passionate and she's very like extroverted and she's very sort of gregarious and loud. And I think when you are somebody who is on that disposition, if you're also somebody who is very sort of like quick to say how they feel and to sort of be out there, it can become a bit intense for somebody. It's kind of like what people say about Africans or even like Nigerians, like because we're very sort of loud, gregarious people, it's the same in any time we're showing any form of emotion, whether it's happiness or whether it's sadness or whether it's anger or frustration. It kind of gets delivered in the exact same way of that very intense, very passionate, very loud, in your face type thing. And as what Charlene was saying is so correct. If you are around other Nigerians or Africans or other Asians and they all kind of behave the same way, or for example, she grew up in the Bay Area, she was around a lot of multicultural and probably around a lot of ethnic minorities who probably have similar ways of communicating. So for her, the way that she communicated in her very sort of passionate, gregarious way was never an issue because a lot of the people in the Bay Area probably, and I know for a fact, do also communicate in that same way. But I think someone said it in the chat. Obviously, Jeezy is somebody who's very laid back, very chill, but he's somebody that is probably very, very adept at drawing boundaries when he feels a boundary has been crossed. When he feels his boundary has been crossed, he's very adept at being able to communicate that and check somebody and put someone in their place in a certain way. Whereas maybe her first husband, he seemed a little bit more docile, he seemed a bit more gentle, and he seemed a bit more lover of peace and placating this peaceful thing. And they very much were opposites attract. And as much as Jeezy and Jeannie, for some people see them as opposites attract, they pretty much came from very similar cultures. So I think that was also where they kind of had that. That's why I think where a lot of people also thought it made sense for them. But I agree with what Charlene is saying. I think your culture and who you grow up around also plays a massive role in how you're able to view your own behavior, whether good or bad. And so for some people, they can go a long time without realizing that they have problematic aspects, especially when you realize she was working in like TV and working in LA, and a lot of that persona she would have had to utilize to get her far in her career is probably what might, for her, she might have realized hindered her in her relationships.
So just to add what you both are saying, based on the woman that I was listening to, what she's saying is in the Vietnamese culture, there's usually two types of people. There are those who are the educated, and that's how they get their success, and they comport themselves in a particular way. And there's those who are not and comport themselves in a different way. What she said is how Jeannie Mai and her family, or her mum, is seen is that they are ghetto. In terms of the Vietnamese way, they are ghetto in terms of how they talk, the mum's anger issues. And she said what's upsetting to her was that the way Jeannie Mai, I guess, to everyone else, it seems like her mum, like everyone's laughing, is entertaining. But to the Vietnamese culture, she has anger issues, the mum. And she says the way it's being positioned across is like, this is how Vietnamese people are, with the heavy accent and everything else. And it says like, no, they don't actually want her to keep putting her mom on that pedestal in that way, because it's not a proper representation of their culture. But this is why she said amongst the culture, Jeannie Mai is seen as only a black man can handle her, because a typical Vietnamese man would not want that, would not want whatever she saw in Jeannie Mai privately. So I can understand I don't even know where she grew up, but whoever she was around, apart from my family, whoever she was around, and and however upbringing is, I can fully understand why Jeezy was an easier fit. And this is why the comment about, is it dark meat on the side? I understand that as a black man in terms of how we're fetishized and etc. And how some women get turned on differently when it comes to a black man, but they don't particularly feel safe in terms of are they going to be looked after, which is why they might go for a white man, for example. And that's the case. To me, that's what she was trying to explain. But I can see how being with a black man makes her feel differently anyway. And by the way, would also validate her because naturally black men are put on that fetish pedestal, and not really black women. Black women are kind of looked down upon, but black men are put on that pedestal as, oh my gosh, I'm with a black man. So I can understand, why all that happens. But just to agree with what you said, yeah, she may not have realized, depending on who she was around as well, depending on how other ladies would have addressed her or anything, because I think she met her ex-husband when she was real young anyway. She wouldn't have realized up until Jeezy met her that, okay, maybe this is a problem. However, the only issue I have with that is, how do you go through life and still behave this way or whatever way, and generally do think that how you're behaving in general is okay, the way you communicate? To me, if you're in any relationship at a given point in time, you're going to sit down and you're actually going to think, okay, do I need to address things differently? That's why, as a man in this situation, I look at it as, it's just down to Jeezy. Because it wouldn't have been, oh, okay, thank you for telling me. There would have been a battle in the beginning. And to the point where Jeezy would have, spoken in a way for her to understand. Obviously, she's in her 40s now anyway. And he would have said, gave her the ultimatum, change this, because this isn't going to run with me. And she's never had that before. And that's often what happens, where you do understand, but it does take a man to come along and say, I ain't down for that. I mean, Ashanti said the same thing about Nelly. He was, up until that point, he was the only guy that said, I ain't gonna deal with that mouth. Stop it now or it's over. And she said she didn't like it in the interim, but she loved it. So to me, this is where in my mind where I'm saying, okay, when she says Jeezy is her equal, when I speak to a lot of women privately about these things, this is what they refer to. A man is their equal because he's principled, puts his foot down and puts her in her place so she can have that respect for him. And yeah, these are the intricacies that some ladies don't tell each other about. For some reason, they do say these things to particular men in terms of admittance of, why they wasn't respectful to a previous husband, to a previous ex.
Can I just say though, sorry, just for clarification. So Jeezy wasn't the one that pointed out the anger stuff. I don't know if you watched the interview that she did with Shannon Boody. It wasn't Jeezy that actually pointed it out. It was more of her realizing that they were both triggering each other. And I don't think she basically said in the interview that Jeezy never mentioned anything about her anger issues, but she, I guess, figured out that she was adding to it and they were both triggering each other. I mean, that can go into another conversation of I guess maybe he didn't say anything for purposeful reasons of like, I'm trying to find an exit out of this, who knows? But I think also in other interviews, who has said that this is something that she noticed in an interpersonal relationship, a romantic relationship. And it's also important to take into consideration she dated Freddie for years and then was married for 10 years and then was single for a year or two and then met Jeezy. So she doesn't have much adult experience of being in a relationship to actually find out all of those triggers. She at least was saying that that behavior comes out in romantic relationships or interpersonal relationships with family. I'm not sure how it comes out in friendships. Maybe that's something that we'll find out eventually. But I know for her work relationships, she was always very professional at work-wise. So I guess that kind of goes to your point a little bit of she was able to manage her behavior in some aspects of, showing up in a correct way at work and things. But then again, on the other side, we could argue about whether or not that's just because she was an ethnic minority and she didn't want to step on people's toes. So maybe them feeling more comfortable with somebody else who understands that culture allowed her and also having that pushback, or at least having somebody who was going to check her that she didn't get in her first marriage. She realized, oh, okay, I'm getting pushback where I didn't used to get pushback. So something is happening here that I didn't realize that I was playing a role in, if that makes sense.
The reason why I will disagree with the whole point about her saying Jeezy didn't check her is simply because for a person to tell you that's not going to run around here,
It's
that's
him
the
checking
person
me.
highlighting that's an issue. So it might not have been a sit down, okay, tell me about your trauma and all these things.
Yeah.
But to a man, that's checking the person for their attitude and behavior.
Oh yeah, no, he
He's
definitely.
obviously
But he never
done it in a way.
the anger. What I mean,
What do you say?
he definitely checked her, but I don't think he ever like was like you're really angry type thing. If that makes sense.
But that's the thing, we don't know because we're going off her how she looks here. I've been in those relationships, and trust me, certain things like these are said that are not actually accurate to the moment.
Yep.
You have to look at things holistically because, again, as a man, if we're going to check a woman based on that, we're not just going to say, "Don't talk to me like that." We're going to talk about it properly behind it. But because that was the first time it happened, she may not have looked. She wouldn't have received it in a nice way that she's put it. It's that doesn't happen that way. There's always a battle, and you only get to the point where, number one, you do realize for yourself, okay, maybe I need to change. But as a man, usually what we see, unless as a man you put your foot down, that's not going to change because that respect has to be there. She didn't respect Jeezy based on how he showed himself as a principled man. That's not going to run around here. There wouldn't have been that change or that recognition. And this is from countless women saying the same thing about going from one guy that they disrespected to a man that they do respect. It's the same pattern, same thought process, same admittance. But this is why, for me, it's like when you talk to other women, why don't you admit these things? But when you talk to the certain guy that you can actually respect, you actually start admitting these things. I don't understand why that there's no transparency in that communication, because that could help a lot of men, that could help a lot of women.
I think personally that, like, she said obviously she didn't know her anger was a problem. She lying to you, man. Full blown lying. I'm so sorry. She full blown lying. She just never was in a position to have to check it. That's all it was, right? But your anger was a problem. It's not like you suddenly became self-aware of Jeezy. No, you knew it was a problem. People have told you it's a problem, but you've been able to have relationships with people who have allowed you to get away with it. That's the big difference. And those people who you're supposedly who you respected have not checked you in a particular way that has made it fearful of your relationship having to change. When people don't have consequences for their behavior, they tend to continue. One thing I've noticed as well when it comes to we know about men and what they do. We crazy. So I don't have to go into us as men. But one thing I've noticed about women when they I think we did a live about this maybe a few months back about or maybe I did a live about this a few months back. We were talking about like, for instance, the Jeannie Mai situation, right? 10 years in that relationship with her ex-husband, right? And the truth of the matter is her anger and her disrespectful behavior towards him was actually rewarded, because whenever he doesn't stand up and be principled about it and say, actually, this is going to be enough for me to leave the relationship, he rewards her behavior by staying and being loyal in that relationship up until a point, right? And then by the end of it, then he's cheating or whatever, he's having a woman before the end of the divorce, whatever, right? But the reality of the situation is this: when it comes to also respect, there's a little bit of fear in there. Let me keep it absolutely real. When women say there's a little bit of when they respect somebody, there's a fear in there too. There's a fear that, listen, let me tell you something. Me personally, I'm not gonna have it. Number two, I'll walk away. That bit of fear where the person can walk away from you and they contribute more to your life than maybe you are contributing towards theirs, definitely cause the person to go, oh, let me think about this. Maybe this is not gonna be quite right. You know what I mean? And here's also the other thing. Beautifully actually put, she felt safe in the relationship to have a child, right? So she got to that place. But what people always forget is when we talk about safety, there are different components of safety. And just because you feel safe in terms of this person emotionally keeping you safe in terms of, okay, this person might not disrespect me, or this person might not do this or might not do this. There are other components of safety within that aspect that also need working on, right? So for instance, her mouth, we know she's got a bit of a mouth. She said it already. She said, obviously, when she can pop off and say her thing, right? Now, she may feel safe enough to have a child, but she may not be safe enough to actually deal with her mouth, because that's another aspect of within herself that she needs to work on, right? So just because one has grown in one particular area doesn't mean that they've grown in another particular area completely. So it's all about each of us have areas of growth that we're all trying to grow in. But I think for me personally, you know, I think what she saw with Jeezy when I heard the interview that she did with Shambudi was, this is somebody who was a go-getter, ambitious. He was doing his thing. He was unwilling to slow down. He was not going to compromise to make her win. He going to do his thing. He's always going to keep moving. And I think that put her in a particular place where she's having to like, oh, okay, like he's gonna keep on going, climbing. I gotta get my ass together if I'm gonna stay with this type of dude. But in amongst of that too, that can also create problems too, right? Someone can keep on moving, and that can feel like you're being stretched before your time. If you don't have necessarily the attributes at that moment, you can feel stretched. And when you feel stretched, you go back to what? Survival mode. So she could have felt safe, and she could have gone way back to survival mode and laid back onto what she knew previously was her past relationship. Now, this is me explaining her behavior. She's not getting a pass from me. I'm so sorry. She ain't getting a pass from me. Just like I don't give anybody a pass. But I wanted to engage in this conversation. I think it's good to explain where she may have got to a place where she's feeling like she can, where this might have happened, or why this situation might have taken place in that sense. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in. I don't know if Charlene, you had your mic open, or Max, or if you wanted to say something, or JR, because I haven't heard from you guys. JR, you got anything to say?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, Jeannie Mai is she comes across as a very strong personality and outspoken. And I think the level of self-awareness that she had to actually realize that she was letting her mouth go, or she did have an attitude at some points in time, that's to be commended. But you know, if she's been doing it for such a long time, it's going to take years to undo that. That's not a quick fix. That's a behavioral change. And in life, as we know, like, there are things that will take us through ups and downs, but it's how we react to it. And from what I saw from both of them together, she was talking him up very highly. They both loved each other, you know, quite open. So there's no infidelity or anything like that. It purely seems like they kept clashing, and the way that they kept clashing, you know, there was no resolution to it. And it's easy to look at the relationship and be like, you know what, another one bites the dust. But they do have a child, and if you're quick at the mouth and, you know, you can be volatile at times, that's not good for the child either. So kids are like a sponge, you know, between 0 and 7. So when they're picking up on these vibes, even if she's not doing it outright in front of the kid, even if they're not arguing outright in front of the kid can probably pick up on hostility or remnants of their arguments. So that's not healthy to be in. So yeah, like I said, I think it's a difficult one, but it's probably one that a lot of couples experience nowadays. There are a lot of couples who are bosses or working, you know, in management and various things like that. So when you have two strong personalities who spend most of their time at work, hustling, grinding, bossing, like coming home, you got to be able to temper that and change that into the romance, the love. You have to transfer that. You're not a boss at home. I mean, you do run the home, but you run it together. And if you're going to run a tight ship, you really have to watch how your temperament is unleashed on your partner. When it starts to grind on them, you know, and the arguments become more frequent, it really puts you in a position where the partner now sees you as someone who's potentially going to clash all the time. Jeezy, like you said, he's going to keep doing what he's doing. You know, his work ethic is probably quite high for what he does. It has to be in order for him to stay relevant. But they're in two different fields, 2 different worlds. So there has to be a meeting in the middle. And yeah, it worked for 2 years, but that's not really a long time when you think about it. So, you know, hopefully they can resolve something, or come, you know, it doesn't have to be beef all the time. But, you know, at least she's realized that particular aspect, because there are a lot of people who go around lacking that self-awareness, who don't realize how hostile they actually are or how they come across. And hopefully she can do something about it, because she sits down on these panels with her cohorts talking about relationship issues and all that stuff. So hopefully she seeks the help that she would advise for someone else to temper that temperament.
Can I ask a question? So nobody knows why they're divorcing, right? Is that correct?
We don't
As
know.
in, some of you are nodding and some of you are shaking your head. What does that mean
No,
here?
we all
No,
agree with
I
that.
think we'll agree with you. Yeah, we'll agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think somebody mentioned in the chat, our private chat, about an ultimatum. And I'm just wondering to what extent this filing for divorce is actually him not wanting to be married to her anymore, or him showing her how serious he is about his principles and his boundaries, just to get her to get shaken up a little bit and listen. It's not a great way to go about it, you know, but it's just something I'm curious about. I mean, I guess I'll never know, but I just wondered if it was known at all, you know, why he filed. That was it, really.
No, we don't know.
We don't know. There's more information coming out. I think Funky Geneva said that he got some tea and said apparently she moved her family, well, her brother and her mother into the house. They didn't agree on that. So that's one of the major things. Safety issue too. I think the child, Jeannie Mai, wanted to walk the child to school, whatever. He felt some type of way about it. Safety concerns, etc., etc. I don't really see safety concerns that being an issue. I mean, I guess it's part of it as a combination. The mother and the brother moving in, that will definitely rock your ish. It will rock your ish. Moving family into a house will rock your ish. But anyway, yeah, there you go.
But my thing is that she's always been very close to her brother and his mother, and she's always been very clear about them living with her. Like they lived with her when she was married to Freddie. So it's either he just assumed that once they got married he'd be able to talk her out of it, or she assumed that once they got married she'd be able to talk him into it. Because I'm like, how did you not talk about this before you walked down the aisle? Before, as you were planning the wedding and doing all this, because they had a very lavish wedding. How did you not figure all of this stuff out? So I think it's more to do with the raising the child. I think it's more to do with maybe her wanting him to slow down, because now that, you know, him wanting him to maybe spend more time at home with the daughter and all of these other things. So I think it was more maybe future issues that were going to crop up that maybe were causing I guess that kind of disruption. Because I guess for me, I'm like, surely all of this stuff would have been talked about, and of course maybe it wasn't, but it just, I don't know, it just seems very far-fetched that they wouldn't have spoken about any of this.
I just want to add to what you said as well, right? On the day, apparently, so I didn't see it for myself, but on the day of his divorce filing, he apparently shared a gallery of photos with the caption saying, "Too focused on who I'm becoming, to focus on who's not coming with me." Which, I mean, that's a big statement to make in general, because people are going to be asking, are you just saying stuff for the saying stuff's sake? Or are you, giving indirects? And, we can see his social media behavior hasn't been, lifting up his wife. It's been her that's been doing over the past couple of weeks. So, and in fact, they went on holiday, in like July or something like that anyway. So it's there's a lot of information here that we don't know, but at the very least, I think in agreement, we can see that it was Jeezy who for whatever the reasons is, it was him who was like genuinely done. You know, whether the divorce was to say, I'm showing you that I have boundaries, I don't know. I mean, Cardi B did that to Offset anyway, twice, you know, and he had to apologize, you know, publicly about things he was doing, and they seem to be great. But who knows? You know, who knows? I mean, reading the divorce document, you can see he's quite direct, pointing a lot of things to the prenup and leaving some things up to the court to decide. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, you know what? Moving family into marriage spaces in the Western world, it's just you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. I'm so sorry. You're asking for trouble. All right, yeah. And these, like people are saying, they've got enough money to build a house separate from where they are, or give them a wing on the mansion. There is literally no reason why your parents need to be fully involved or close by, proximity wise, in your marriage. It just creates drama, man. I'll be honest with you. It just creates chaos. There's a reason why the husband leaves his home and clings to his wife. You know what I'm saying? You are creating a new environment, a new family. I'm not saying about you can't help and can't be thinking or whatever, but I'm just saying that it just creates a lot of tension within a family when you have that perspective, when people are too close. Not to say they can't be involved, but when they're too close. Also, the type of involvement too is also a key thing. You know, what kind of involvement does your parents get involved to? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, are they hands-on? Are they inner? Like, what kind of involvement is there? Do you get what I'm saying to you? So yeah, I know people are saying that's their culture and stuff. I'm not complaining about the culture. I'm mainly saying that, I'll be honest with you, yeah, that moving family into the home is sometimes, a lot of times, very difficult. When you move them into the home, and it depending on what kind of power they hold as well within the relationship, this can be a very difficult thing, right? So this can cause a lot of carnage for a lot of relationships, because power dynamics are a very real thing, right? Especially with us in the Western society. We're used to being independent. We're used to having our own way. We're used to doing our things. Imagine now someone's mum comes in and is in the house and trying to tell you something. It's going to cause issues. And and we're saying this like this culture, of course, is normal. We see this in African cultures too. Parents come and live with people, families, and we see the destruction that happens too. So this ain't the Asian thing, and everyone's saying it's an Asian thing. In African culture too, parents come and stay with family, married couples, and it causes destruction too. You see the kind of carnage that it brings. There's a lot there too. Okay, just saying. Yeah,
But
let's
that's
not make
usually
this
after
an
someone
Asian
has
thing.
a baby, no?
Huh?
Isn't that usually after the woman has a baby?
Yeah, usually it's, you don't know, baby. Yeah, we normally do like the first few years, whatever, and then you go away, don't they? So
The first few years?
see, even you are shocked. You see, that's how you see. That's
That's not
I proved
part
my
of my
point there. See, it's too long.
culture. Not
That's what
in
I'm
my
trying to say.
culture. That's not a thing. I don't know what that happens. A few years. I was thinking you're gonna say weeks, maybe a couple months. A few years. No, you need to go. You need to go back to your house and leave me be in mine.
So you agree with Jeezy then?
For me personally, my family is very independent. So I doubt very highly my mom would, if I had a baby, my mom would come and like help me look after the child maybe for a couple of months. But after that, she's going home. She's gonna like, yeah, bye. She probably be the first one to be like, okay, I'm leaving now, bye. So I think it does depend on your family and your culture and how your family culture is like. But yeah, I mean, a few years is a lot though. That's a lot. Kojo's ready.
You know what's funny though? The mom has remarried, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know where the husband is or what's going on there. But
they both have remarried, I think, actually. They both.
The dad's just had a girlfriend for 10 years. But he hasn't remarried.
Okay. I think her mum's husband is black, actually.
God damn.
I think he is. Yeah, I think he is. JR is trying. Both JR and and Kojo. Anyways, woman bosses, guys.
Good segue. So, woman bosses. We're talking about this topic, woman bosses. I'm gonna provide a video clip for you guys. Hopefully, my internet will hold up because you know how I'll be trying to move a bit crazy sometimes. Fantastic. Let me zoom in because before you guys start reading some DMs and you see why you don't need to see. Let me play this clip for you guys. Oh crap! Hold on. I must play it twice so you guys can get a full perspective.
This is so nice. Yeah, so yep, I'm an entrepreneur, so I own a couple of businesses. Bitch, you can't afford me. No, wait, where are you going? You're so handsome, by the way. Thank you so much. This is so nice. Yeah, so yep, I'm an entrepreneur, so I own a couple of businesses. Bitch, you can't afford me. No, wait, where are you going?
So it's a little skit which was quite funny, I thought, and I think it was a good little demonstration about what happens in I guess relationships or dating perspective. So the question we're asking at this point in time now is, why do men avoid dating women bosses? That's if they do avoid women bosses. If you feel like they don't, then you can answer that and say they don't. But why do men tend to avoid dating women bosses or female bosses, or women that are in high-end corporate jobs, or the entrepreneurs, why is it that the man them just say we're not dating these gal, or they date them but they can't stay long? What is it about the entrepreneur that the man them are running from? What are we running from? Man them, this is a question to you first. So what are we running from?
Sorry.
Just want to know what a man them are running from. Yeah, JR, tell me what you're running from.
I ain't running, but I like the way how you called me out there for some reason, Coach. But
I wouldn't do that to you, bro.
Yeah, so yeah, I think I kind of said in the chat already. Are we talking about women bosses or bossy women?
Okay.
I think when you come home from work, both parties come home from work, whether you're in a corporate job or, it doesn't matter what you're doing these days, because most of the time you're working 30, 40 hours a week at least. I think for guys, it's probably a situation where you don't want someone to be running you at home. Like, you don't want them to be bossing you at home. All right. The power dynamic that everybody speaks of in a traditional relationship is being challenged, and it's not just by modern couples. It's been challenged by single people. They just don't want to get into relationships where they feel like they are being controlled in the house, in a relationship. So I can see why it happens, but I think it's going to continue. I don't see any signs of it abating, because you have more successful, more educated women, Black women, going out there doing their thing, making that money. And a lot of them bring that work ethic, that work mentality home as well. And I think decoding that into how you're going to have that in your relationship is going to take a lot of skill. I don't think it's a uncommon dilemma, to be honest. It's probably going to happen more. More guys are going to be thinking, okay, I like you, but if you think you're going to run me in my house, or think you're going to tell me what to do all the time and treat me like some employee in the house, nah, I'd rather be by myself, or just have temporary relationships.
Love that. JR, talk to them. They need to know why we don't be dating. No jokes. What is it that the men are avoiding? Um, avoiding women bosses. Why are they avoiding those women bosses? Why you avoid them, eh?
To me, yeah, it's okay. What JR said is correct, but whenever I hear this conversation now, especially being through it, for me, I normally speak about a character issue. So I was having this conversation with a lady about this even today, so it's quite ironic actually. But where I am in my life now, just looking at people the way, I see them at my vantage point, having been married, I'm 36 years old, speak to, different types of people, usually about the same things that they experience. The common theme is, who are you? When you've achieved something in your life, who are you as a character? And this reminds me of, I think it was Joyce Meyer or one of these ladies who said she was married 3 times and the third time is her most successful. And the only thing that she did was drop who she was at. Let me say it correctly, but I'm going to say drop who she was at the door. I'm not talking about she's losing her identity or nothing like that. I just mean this boss lady who she was in the church. She dropped it at the door and became a wife and decided to treat him accordingly. Regardless that she was more known, made more money, etc., out of reverence for God and her sake of her own peace, she said, no, when I'm in the presence of my husband, I'm going to be what I'm supposed to be, which is submissive and etc. So this is the character issue that I'm talking about. Because when men address these things, not a lot of men address them properly, so I do apologize about that, but it's usually pointing to, who are you in the relationship? Where is this extra disrespect coming from? Where is this extra combativeness coming from? Yes, there are insecure men out there who, regardless of that, they just have their issues, but that's not what we're talking about right now. We're saying generally, a man could not be insecure, but he's looking at, who am I dealing with? Have you let your success become your identity? Because you have a lot of ladies that will tell you as well, I'm not going to date a man who leads with his money. His money is his identity. No, I need to know you. How are you going to treat me as a partner? And I think this is what really is the crux of the matter. So even that video, it's meant to be satire, but that's like surface level conversation, because the hearing that you can't, blah, blah, blah. Well, the joke is you have a lot of women who do talk like this, especially with the man who doesn't earn as much. You do have a lot of women who says, I'm not carrying no man with that same attitude. So we can laugh about it, but these things happen quite frequently. So when men talk to each other and see what's happening out there, the concern is there. It's like, you know what? Am I going to take this chance dating someone who is like this? Because the chances are it's going to be very difficult for them to change, because they've had to adopt a particular way of doing things because of their trauma, because of what they've been through, and they've become successful. It is not easy to then transfer that into a household. For some people, it's impossible. And they need therapy. They need, all types of things, even if they have the right men there. So in answering this question, again, I've done it before, so I can't say I run away from it. I've done it before. But what I pay attention to is more the character. But from the beginning, I have these conversations and I see, where is your head at? I've had to walk away from people before because I said, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. What's the point? I know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to put myself through that. And to me, that makes you brave. Like that's you actually being a man. You're not weak. It's like a woman walking away from a guy who's problematic. It's not romantic to be there, struggle, and just accept a lack of love, a lack of nonsense. Just accept nonsense. That's silly. Walk away, be brave. You don't have to accept any of these things. It doesn't make you a worse off person because you don't want to. So that, to me, this is just where the conversation comes from for me. I now see it as, in order for us to work and have peace in a household, what should the dynamic be? If you want a man to lead, it makes no sense that you're combative, that you're argumentative, that you're also leading as if you are the leader of the relationship, you're micromanaging. I remember watching, what's it called? Millionaire Matchmaker. And there was a particular woman on there who admitted she has an issue with control. She has an issue with micromanaging. She just can't help it. And there was a guy on there that she liked it was the first and only date. The lady warned her, just sit down and talk to him. Do not do nothing else. But while he was there cooking, she couldn't help but get up and tell him what to do. she couldn't help but get up and then eventually started doing it for him. And he's looking at it like, I didn't ask you to come. There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. You just need to sit down and have a conversation with me. And, you know, when it was all said and done, she said, I really like this guy. This guy's the one for me. But that guy didn't turn up. And his reason was because why would I put myself through that? This is the first date. If she can't stop herself from leading when I'm showing her that she doesn't need to, what's going to happen throughout? I'm not here to change her. I'm here to love her the way she is, and I can't love that. That's me.
Thank you very much. Yeah, personally, just real quickly, I guess I think for me personally, I just can't do it, you know. And when I say I think JR's bar is perfect, you know. Is it women bosses or bossy women? And I think oftentimes what happens is the two get conflated, because sometimes, a lot of times, the behavior is conflated. Like the behavior actually is together. Sometimes the behavior is both. You are a boss, but you bossy. You know what I mean? You don't know how to turn it off. You know, you don't know how to stop organizing everything, including me in my life. And that can be something that can be a real turner for certain men. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I have my life the way I have my life and I do my things the way I do my things, I do not want the restrictions of you telling me what to do. Now, that's not every bossy person. You know, that's not every person's a boss, sorry. You know, and I think what can be very hard is, you know, for some women, their traits are just to be great organizers, to be great leaders, you know. But unfortunately, they can't turn that off in a relationship. And actually, it comes from a place of oftentimes, one, they are great leaders, and while they are great at what they do, sometimes it also comes from a place of fear, which is that if they're not in control, they feel some type of way. Same way as us, when we don't control, we don't feel some way as well. So, you know, I think it can be very difficult at points in time for certain women to turn it off, because they're afraid of, if they don't have that power to control the situation, then they feel like they're too vulnerable. You know, so I do understand that point. So for me personally, yes, no, I don't avoid women bosses per se. You know, I don't necessarily avoid them. I'm all about, first and foremost, what energy you bring to the table. Number two, what I would say is this: if she can't follow my lead, I don't want it. I'm gonna tell you straight. I'm not about to argue with you. Y'all know I had this conversation with somebody. I said, listen, if you can't take my last name, I don't want it. I'm not about to sit here and argue with you and have a double barrel name. I don't want to argue about it. That's your business. Find someone else to do it, because I ain't doing it. So, you know, I think it's about knowing what you want to do and what you want to bring to the table. And I always say this, you know, some people might not like it, but as a man, you need to find your place, lead, and you need to work with women who will follow that particular lead. I need men to stop choosing women that don't follow their lead. You're wasting your time, you're wasting her time, and you're only going to create further drama down the line. So if you're a man out there, I'll tell you straight, stop arguing and fighting about women don't know how to follow leads and saying, no, she doesn't have to follow your lead. And that's okay. Go and find the one that will follow your lead and be with her. Because you trying to fight and bury women are not submissive. There are lots of submissive women. They just don't submit to you. And I think you need to be honest and real about yourself. You don't have the skills for it. And I may not have the skills for a certain type of woman. So I have to be honest with that and be okay with that, you know? Ladies, it's good to hear from you, ladies. As you hearing us men talk about, you know, the aspects of, you know, the boss women's and stuff. What's your thoughts to this, man? You know, what's your thoughts to this? Hearing us discuss this.
Don't all go at once.
They're being submissive. I appreciate it. No, joke.
Oh, I'm back in.
You're gonna be calling me Kevin Samuel soon. Let me stop. Ladies, yes. What's your thoughts? You know, we want to hear. I mean, you can comment on what we've said. You can comment if you disagree or if you heard something that you might want to challenge. Like, what's your thoughts to this topic? We're talking about why men are avoiding women bosses. You can answer the question, or you can respond to some of the stuff we've said. Maybe you disagree, maybe you agree. What's your thoughts? Yes, Precious, go for it. Yeah, you started twiddling your hair.
No, I want Charlene to go first. first.
Why are you not afraid of tackling this issue, guys?
I'm not afraid, guys. This storm that is happening is legit messing with the Wi-Fi, and it kicked me out the room.
That's fair.
And I didn't even know you'd put me back in, Coach. Thanks for
Okay,
tagging
mate.
me. Get me?
Don't
But let
worry.
me just say this. Okay. I am struggling with the concept that a woman needs to switch parts of herself on and off. Wear a different hat at work, be soft and submissive at home. It sounds like a bit of a mind F, to be honest. I can't imagine what it does to the stability of the self to have to do that all the time. And, you know, I was contemplating on, you know, this thing where women feel like we need to armor up. We need to protect ourselves against being abandoned. We need to make sure that we have enough financial resources for ourselves. We can't rely on men. This is the common trope that is spoken about in society. We can't rely on men, so we need to do it for ourselves, and we need to be independent. But when I'm with him, I'm gonna let him know how much I need him. I don't know, man. And I'm calling BS because it's like having to be a whole new self with your husband. That's a lot of work. And it makes me wonder, if you are becoming soft and submissive at home, how much self-protective residue is being taken with you when you get back home? And what does it do to your stability to have to switch all the time, to go from no armor to armor, no armor to armor? That's a lot of work. I mean, for me personally, I run a business. I am an entrepreneur, but the way I run my business is through surrender. I'm very surrendered to my divine voice. I literally do everything that God tells me to do. This is how I run my business. So the concept of surrender and softness is not foreign to me. So I don't feel like I need to be different in business than I am at home. I don't have two different selves. And I don't know. I don't know if the other women want to speak to that, about this thing of turning your femininity on and off, turning your softness on and off, self-protection on and off. I can't get with it, man. I don't know about that. So that's all I have to say.
Charlene has put some pepper in the game. I like it. She's changed it this way. Put some pepper in the game. Ladies, talk to us, man. You know, welcome, Penny. It's good to see you, babe. Good to see you. Penny, yes, welcome guest. Come on, talk to us. You know, our good sis Charlene's put some pepper in the step. She said, let me challenge these boys a little bit, you know what I mean? They try to change it for us. But what's your thoughts of this? Women bosses, you know, men avoiding women's bosses. Talk to us. You know, you can give us your perspective, your point of view. You can tackle that as well.
No pressure. Why do I get that? But anyways, I think I agree with Charlene. Okay, first let me start off here. I don't think, from my personal experience, I don't think guys avoid women bosses. And for me, I feel like this ideal that as a woman, if you're successful, it automatically correlates to you being intimidating and bossy is wrong. I think there's a patriarchal notion behind that, in the sense that it's a way to minimize women, again, which I think society does very well. Unfortunately, obviously, Black women have to work probably twice as much as compared to our white counterparts, because most of our men are usually incarcerated, or they're not in spaces, or not afforded the spaces and opportunities to work in these corporate organizations as Black women are. And then when we are in these spaces, there's just been this narrative that has been made up that we're aggressive or difficult to work with, but it's actually the opposite. I think the more successful you become, I think this is what Charlene is saying, you have to be more emotionally intelligent. That means you have to be non-reactive, right? Because some of these spaces, you can't just say what you think or do what you want. Like, you're still being paid to be there. So I think there's a lie, or like there's this, there's just, it's not true. And I also feel like maybe because I'm African, I've seen, for me, most of my aunties who've been successful, and this has just been a thing, that they've also had to downplay their success. Even if their husband wasn't working and didn't have the money, they've always had to show up this facade that the guy had more money to keep the relationship going, or from outsiders, so the guy cannot be seen as a bum. And it happens a lot in an African culture. I've seen aunties who pretend the guy bought the house or the car when they bought it with their own money. Because for us, or mainly Africans, I can only speak for Africans, marriage is the penultimate, like that's your ultimate goal. Like, you could be as successful as you want, but if you are not married, you're not successful. So maybe in America, and maybe the American woman's experience is different, but for an African woman, there's no, like, success does not mean you come home and you're disrespectful. It doesn't work like that. I've never seen that. And it's a shame that narrative has been ongoing. I think it's a lie. And I also find, like, the more successful you are, the more attractive you are to men, to be honest. But I will say, I think there are notions. I think there's some truth in the sense that maybe you may embody some sort of characteristics, like being assertive, being very clear cut. Maybe that could come across as a bit intimidating, but to be in a business world or in a corporate world, you do have to embody certain characteristics to survive that. It doesn't mean that everybody who's taken that on board enjoys them. I think it's more of a survival tactic. And to be honest, like I've seen that myself. Like, I know. So my friend is a housewife, and I could see, like, when she talks to her husband, she's so agreeable. Like, there's never an opinion to anything. And I don't know if I like that. Like, but I could also see how always having an opinion about something could be a challenge. So it's knowing when to, and I think if you're with the right person, they could be like, hey, babe, this is too much. Like, it's okay. And you'll be fine. Like, I don't think it's nothing you can't discuss or deal with. So that's just my 2 cents. I feel bad for women who are successful, because I feel like they get penalized for their success, and they shouldn't.
I love this. I love this. The ladies are coming with some shenanigans that are good. I like it. Y'all bringing some spicy points. Yes, ladies, we're still continuing, guys. So Precious or Mac, we haven't heard from you guys. Ladies, sorry. We haven't heard from you ladies yet. We'd love to hear your go on, Precious.
I feel like, I agree. I'll start off with saying I agree with what Penny and Charlene have said. I also feel like this conversation is always a little bit triggering, simply just because I think it feels like a trap. It just feels like one big massive trap, because when it comes to thinking about what works in the space of being a boss or being a business person or having your business work, of course there's different types of business. As Charlene has said, she has a specific way she behaves in her business. It works for her. She goes in her lane, it works. There are other types of businesses and other types of areas in which certain aspects of your personality, or to be more specific, certain aspects of femininity, or quote unquote what femininity looks upon as by a portion of the society, doesn't specifically work in that area, which is what I think Penny was trying to say, of like, in certain corporate areas, some aspects of femininity just doesn't work. Corporate areas are very much built up in masculine structures, and the assertiveness, the attention to detail, having an opinion, all those things are incredibly important. If you work in the corporate area and you're somebody who doesn't have an opinion on anything, you're going to be seen as useless and kind of taking up air and taking up space. You've got to be able to assertively speak your mind, say your opinion, communicate directly, very sort of straightforward, no kind of going in and out and whatever. And I just feel like sometimes the structure of what being feminine is, it kind of feels like it's being constructed and it's being created by people who aren't women a lot of the times. The conversation is being dominated by people who aren't women a lot of times. And that's not to say that's what's necessarily happening here. But I think what I'm saying is kind of going along the same lines of what Charlene was saying, of having to change yourself when you're outside of the home or inside of the home. And I understand that there are, of course, the idea of being combative and being argumentative are aspects that aren't useful for a relationship. But I think that is the same whether you're a man or a woman. I don't think that is a specific female thing. I think that, you know, there are some traits and some behaviors that in relationships just don't work, whether you're a man or a woman. And I think that's why I agree with Jay, where it feels more of a character thing. Of it's not the fact that you are somebody who's very detail orientated, or yes, okay, maybe you might micromanage, but there are things that can alleviate the acting of micromanaging. Of course, being self-aware helps with that. And even if you're somebody who's a leader in business, micromanaging doesn't actually help you in your business anyway, because your employees are going to get really fed up with you pretty quickly if you're a micromanager. Like, I've had micromanagers. It's not fun. So that is something that regardless of man, woman, it doesn't work. So I think sometimes this conversation feels a little bit like a trap, because what we're really talking about are characteristics that both men and women do display that just don't work conducively to having a healthy relationship. It's not because you're a girl boss or you're a bossy woman, because we get bossy men too. Men are inherently, I guess, because of the idea of being a leader and things, they are more, I guess, susceptible to being bossy at times. And that can show in certain aspects of relationships and things like that. But it's more acceptable when it's coming from a man versus than when it's coming from a woman, of the idea of being bossy. But that's not to say that bossy men are like where you should be going either. But I think it's more of just a character flaw. It's more of a situation of not being able to communicate what it is that's actually happening in that moment, not having the mindfulness to be like, okay, well, what am I feeling right now? Like in the example that Jay gave of the woman that was micromanaging the cooking, there's a whole lot of other psychological processes that are happening there that result to her having to micromanage. Maybe she doesn't like what's being cooked. Maybe she feels that she wants to be useful. Maybe her love language is acts of service. And for her, she wants to be useful. And being useful to her is, let me help. Let me get involved. This is how I know how to do it. You're shaking your head, Jay, but this is what I'm saying, is that sometimes you have to have the conversation. You have to have the conversation with someone and allow them the space to be able to tell their story. Kojo many times on his channel has said about people not being able to tell their story, not being able to explain who they are and why it might come out in certain ways. That's not to say that you have to accept it. As always, as everyone says on this panel, you can make the choice of whether you like that or not. And that's all. It's all fair and love and war. But I do feel like sometimes there is an overemphasis on women showing this and women doing this, and it just feels like a little bit of a trap sometimes, of like the onerous is on a woman to be someone outside the door and then be someone when you come into the home, because this conversation doesn't happen with men who are bosses or who are managers. And I'm sure that there are men who are bosses and managers and whoever that behave in ways that men are complaining that women behave in. And that's the only thing, is that I feel like if we're going to have this conversation, we call a spade, and we say it's about the characteristics that are the issue, not necessarily it being a woman thing. But of course, people can disagree. But I just feel like sometimes it just feels like a little bit of a trap, that a woman can't be afforded that opportunity to be successful and to have to take on some of the traits that you need to be successful without being penalized for it. Because I think because it comes naturally to a lot of men, they don't always get penalized for it. And I just feel like there needs to be a little bit of equality when it comes to that. And it's hard to really explain and for you to fully grasp in a way, because I don't know how it feels to be a man. You don't know how it feels to be a woman. All you know is your experiences of us. All we know are our experiences of you. And I think that always clouds the conversation in a way. And you know, the reality is that we both have very different realities of how we experience each other, and that tends to cause some conflict in these types of conversations, because I can already see the faces. I can already feel the rebuttals. I can already feel and it's fair. We can have the conversation, but that's just my piece. Peace and love to everyone on the panel. Love you guys.
Love that. Thank
I'd
you.
like to say
Thank
something, please.
Wait, before you go, it's gonna be Max, and then you can
Okay.
go after Charlie. Go for it, Max.
Yeah, so going back to the video, the lady introduces herself as her businesses, right? And that's not a gendered issue to find your identity in your work. And oftentimes we see that happening because people find confidence, they find comfort in their achievements and their accomplishments. Fine. Then again, you've got the issue of like the characteristics that allow you to thrive in the workplace and bringing them to the home. Like that's been said already, that's also not a gendered issue. People thrive in certain environments in their work, male and female, and sometimes they bring that home. For example, if their dominant leader is a man in the workplace, they might bring that home into their leadership at home as well, and vice versa for a woman. I think I do hear completely like Precious's point about it feels like a trap, because I think to me, if it's contradictory for a man that a woman is both a female boss and a submissive wife, then pick one. Pick one. If you are interested in a submissive wife, then there shouldn't be that requirement for her to be a female boss or to be thriving in the business world and otherwise. And I definitely think there are men like that who are like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I don't need a woman who's an entrepreneur. I don't need a woman who's thriving in her career. I'm ready to pattern those expectations, and she can just follow my lead because I'm already going to meet those needs. But to be honest, there are men who they want the benefits of a female boss and they want the benefits of a submissive wife. And that can be very contradictory and very taxing on a woman. That doesn't have to be you as a man on this panel, but there are men like that. I think that Charlene gave a good kind of analogy or imagery when she talked about the idea of armoring up when you go to work. Like, I'm sure as a man, as a woman, you have to armor up in order to go out and fight in these spaces and thrive in these spaces. And I'm thinking safety is key. If I have to armor up when I go out and my armor has to stay on when I'm at home, there's a problem. And I think if you want softness from the woman and she can't put her armor away, that's a whole other conversation. Because her armor got her victory outside. And so she's wearing that armor, trying to get victory in the home, but you should not be fighting. You're not supposed to be on opposite sides. You're supposed to be on the same team. Supposed to be on the same team. So I think that is part of it as well. So yeah, I've said a few things. I'll leave it there.
Lovely. Charlene, go for it.
So I wanted to say this, that it is not common to see femininity in the workplace, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. And I believe that you can be feminine and assertive. I believe that you can be feminine and respected. I believe that you can be feminine and heard, feminine and understood, feminine and promoted. I could go on, but you get the gist, right? And the thing is that we don't really have a feminine model in a male-dominated environment such as the workplace. We just don't have that kind of model, but it does exist. And there is a way to be completely embodied in feminine essence and actually inspire the men around you to support you and to be there for you and to promote you. And the reason why I know this to be true is because this is what I teach women in my sessions. I teach women how to be women when they speak and still be respected and heard. So I don't think it's a case of we have to armor up when we get to work and we can't be ourselves. We can be ourselves, but we just have to know that there is a way to do it if that's something that you want for yourself. And so I just don't buy into, I mean, I understand that this model is not common, but because I teach it, because I'm surrounded by women who also teach it, I know that there is a way to be completely yourself so that you don't have to toggle between two types of selves. It's just, I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that's very healthy. I don't think that's very functional. I just don't. And that's all I have to say about that.
Lovely stuff. The conversation is flowing. I love it. We're getting to a good place. It's educated. I'm loving the conversation right now. Yes, Sean, go for it.
So I'll start by saying, I really agree with Precious in that, we have to find a middle ground, and certain things just are going to start an argument. And just the same, like when Penny started the conversation and she was framing her points and mentioning that there's many incarcerated Black men and the quality of Black men is lackluster and there's not a lot of Black men in corporate America, that is a narrative that causes Black men to want to, go tete-a-tete with you, because I just disagree. And, I'll leave it there, because if we start going point for point, then we lose sight of the discussion, and that's around this bossiness and what that means and how that relates in relationships. So I think, to Precious's point, certain things we just kind of have to try to avoid when we have these conversations, because they just bring the fight out of us, right? And narratives just bring out the fights, right? So, just like we shouldn't generalize and say all Black women are bossy and, all Black women are fill in the blanks. I think hopefully we can avoid this narrative of there being a very low quality of Black men, because that does nothing but make, if anybody, me, just want to tussle with you and go toe to toe and go all day.
Let me practice my submission and say that's a fair point. That's a fair point, Sean. I'm practicing my submissiveness. You're right.
Thank you so much, Penny. You see how it goes. And I think that is a lovely illustration of how relationships can work in harmony, right? Because it is a give and take, right? And I think that, yes, it is unrealistic to expect a woman that is, at a level where she's managing, or she owns her own business, or she's running a big company, to come home and just be Molly the maid. It's not realistic, right? So she is going to bring the parts of her home. I think what the issue is, and what sometimes happens, and it happens more when there's a disparity, right? Because when both people are moving and navigating and are successful, I think they're able to still flow with the yin and the yang. But when the man, in some instances, is not bringing in the same amount of money or income, or wielding the same amount of power at work, and then when he comes home and his wife or his partner, she can kind of step on him, right? And kind of get into a habit of taking more micromanaging skills into the home, because she feels like she has to, because she sees him as less. And I think that's the issue. you know, that does happen. And then you have with Jeannie Mai and Jeezy, you know, he's successful in his own right, and I believe more successful financially than she is, but she's successful in her own right as well. So you have two successful people, but someone that is just, she's much more on the headstrong side, right? So I think that's when you have to acknowledge that men and women are different. And it's not to say one is better than the other, but in order for there to be sustainable long-term success, there has to be give and take. And everybody can't just be moving full steam ahead. And it doesn't mean that if you concede, you're losing, but sometimes somebody has to concede. And in certain instances, it might be old-fashioned, you call it patriarchal. There's certain things that I think a man does look to, expect, and want his woman to concede to in their relationship. It could be certain family things, right? I know one thing that, and I'll land my plane here, one thing that was kind of bothersome, or this is what the rumor mill is telling us, right, is that she's got some family members living in the house. Also, he likes to come home and you know, just kind of decompress, or if when he was throwing a party, it might be for a small group of people, but everything with her had to be a big to-do, right? Or there was always people around and she's always bumping her gums and talking online and talking about what we did and what's going on and all these opinions, and just getting to talking too much about too many things that he would rather not, right? So sometimes, listen, you got to stop bumping your gums. And I think this is just a, you know, a relationship. Hopefully people can learn, you know, what works for you, but don't start getting on these platforms and talking like you have figured out the cheat code, just like Tyler Perry had to learn. Sometimes you just got to be quiet and you got to sit it out and wait it out and work on your relationship. And if somebody's asking you not to do something, whether it's talk about the relationship on social media, whether it's have lottie-dottie and everybody all up in your house, all type of hours, you know, sometimes you just gotta, you know, just say, hey, listen, for the greater good of my marriage, I'm not gonna have everybody up in my house. And we got enough money where we can put Granny in a deluxe Shady Pines, because I don't want to live with my in-laws. I'm sorry, I don't. Maybe, and I was talking to Elson in the comments, maybe when I'm 70 plus and I'm, you know, have done all the life and living that I have, then they can come. They got a couple of years left and I got a few years left. But I'm not spending 20, 30 years with mommy and daddy. I don't care if it's 10 doors down, 2 doors down across the street. I need them to be in their own domicile and I need to be in mine. Now, again, some people don't mind that. There's men that have no problem with that. I'm just not one of them. And I need peace and space and distance. You know, we got enough going on betwixt the two of us. I don't need your mama chiming in. I don't need your daddy. I don't need your grandma bumping her gums and pulling out her dentures and telling me what to do and flipping her wig around and telling me what I need to do when I say what. No, we're not even going to have that conversation. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to keep everybody to a 2-minute timer from now because everyone's had their say now. So just to keep the conversation flowing and keeping it nice and fresh and keep it enjoyable. But yeah, no, good points that you guys are making. Good point that ladies are making as well. I'm really enjoying the conversation. I think this is good. I personally, maybe what I heard is, or one part I'm wanting to add perspective of is, I don't think it's necessarily about the woman taking a position of being a boss in the workplace that causes issue. I think it's the attitude. And one thing I think that we're missing in this conversation, and I know Charlene was saying about women tapping into femininity, is this. You know, you ever seen those hairdressers that are male? You ever see those hair? Do you know how they act? Yeah. No, I'm going to be stereotypical about it because I want to bring the point to the table to make it very plain. What happens when that man ends up becoming a stereotypical hairstylist or whatever? He usually carries a particular energy. I'm being stereotypical on purpose, right? Because the environment that he's in has a particular energy. So he brings that energy, and if he doesn't check himself, he brings that energy back home. The same thing also happens in a male-dominated arena. If you go into a male-dominated arena amongst pure men, you're more than likely going to pick up a lot of our traits that are associated with us as men. The trouble is, and I think the difficulty that we can have with this conversation is that not that you're a boss, is that if you're consistently around that energy, what tends to happen is you pick it up and you carry it, and if you're not aware, you bring it back home. And I don't want to date another man. You understand what I'm saying to you? If I wanted to date my boys, I'd have been gay. No offense. I would have been. I don't want to date my boys. Do you get what I'm saying to you? I wanted to date you because of the feminine energy that you have and the way you carry yourself and the way you move and the way that you think and the way you do certain things. I think what we're talking about when we're talking about avoiding the woman boss is not necessarily the role that she plays. It's not the business that she has, but it is more to do with the attitude and the energy that she may carry, being in those spaces consistently and bringing that into the relationship. Do you get what I'm saying to you? And I think my final point is, now I'll shift it on so we can keep the 2 minutes flowing. My final point on this also too is that I think women sometimes don't see that, and this happens to men too. Earning money gives you an ego, and that ego plays a role in relationships, both for men and women. But now women are also earning money too. Y'all got the same ego we got. You know why? Because that is what we have. So if you spend enough time around us, making money, earning money, achieving things, having high this, it creates this ego. And actually, a lot of times we bring it into the relationship. This is both men and women, right? You get some men who say this, like, I can do whatever I want in a relationship because I earn all the money and I pay all the bills. It's an ego. And then you get women too who go into these spaces too, and that becomes part of their weaponry, right? And so that becomes one of those kind of arguments that happen between men and women as well, and within a relationship. So I'm not saying that their women should be bosses. I don't think I will never advocate for that. I think women should continue to be bosses. The world's a better place for it. You know what I mean? I'm saying that when it comes to this topic, there are nuances within it is that person aware of some of the traits that they're carrying, or some of the energy or the attitude they're carrying into their relationship that may particularly affect it as well. So, just a little something to spice the conversation up as well. Who would like to go first, and whether you agree or disagree, up to you. Men or women can do it. You know what I mean? We'd be happy to have your 2 minutes. Go for it, Precious.
So I'm probably not going to use the entire 2 minutes. I would just say that I think that the reason why I think this is triggering, because we center it around women rather than around the traits. And I think if the conversation shifted to focusing on what are the traits that are not conducive to relationships, it would probably be received a lot better. And I think delivery is important, just as important as the message. And I think focusing on what is actually those things that don't work, because the reality of the situation is that women complain about these same traits in men too. And I think over time, as now the conversation online has shifted and men are able to talk more about what they need in relationships, what they find important, what I also find is that there is a little bit of disingenuousness in some of the things that are being said, as more of the idea of kind of what you were saying, Kojo, about when you earn money, you get ego. These things are things that have been modeled over years by the people who are in power and who are in societal power and who lead the society, which are men. So I feel like a starting point is that accountability of understanding that some of these aspects that you are saying are issues are things that have been long-standing with men. That's number one. Number two, these are aspects that now maybe some women are now taking on board, and they're not working relationships. So that means that they were never working in relationships. And that's where the focus needs to be in, is that these are just things that are harmful in general. And I think if we focus on that, it pushes the conversation forward, and it stops it from being a woman boss thing versus bossy women. And I think that's why it should be, for example, it should not be bossy women, it should be bossy people. And I think that's the thing that really needs to be pushed forward, so this conversation can be moved forward, because otherwise it kind of just goes around in circles of you're not submitting or you're not leading. And it's like, it should be more than that. It should be, what are the actual things that you need to make relationships healthy? Because you can submit all you like, you can lead all you like, but you can still have a really toxic, unhealthy relationship. So I think that focus needs to be on what are the psychological processes that are working, what are the societal processes that are working, how do we make this interpersonal relationship work for both people. And I think, yeah, the focus should be away from femininity and masculinity, just for me personally, because I think those things are already social constructs. They change. You know, we've been in a conversation of men saying that masculinity doesn't look like a specific thing. Femininity doesn't also look like a specific thing. And I think sometimes that is not afforded to women. But again, it's
Is that a cop out? No, is that a cop out?
no,
let me say what. Let me give you a cop out. If I tell you now to date somebody who earns half the amount of money you make right now, in fact, not even less that, he works in McDonald's, are you going to date him?
Probably not, but that's not because of masculinity.
No, because it comes into it because you expect me to play a particular role.
No, because no. Do you know what?
When women challenge this, that's what they always go to.
No,
okay,
for me personally,
sorry, apologies.
Be at least on the same level as me as a starting point.
Why?
Because it's easier for both parties. That's
why not date some? He works in McDonald's, like Tyler Perry said. He can only pay a light bill.
Yeah.
Why are you not comfortable with him paying a light bill?
You know why? Do you know why? Because I wouldn't expect a man to be comfortable with me being only to pay a light bill either.
Why not?
Because it means that I'm a burden.
Because you have stereotypical ideas of what I should be as a role.
No, I don't.
Okay. If you say that's you personally, okay, that's you personally.
I don't want to. The crux of the idea is we should not be burdens on each other. That's what I mean. And for example, if I earn a lot less than him, he has every right to say, I'm not feeling it. That's fine.
My bad.
All's fair in love and war. I just think for me, for example, yeah, if you're in like what Tyler Perry was saying, if you're in a relationship and the person is giving you everything else and they don't earn as much money, that is a you decision to decide if that works for you. If it doesn't work for you, fine. If it does, fine. But that has to be something that you decide on what's going to work for you. It also has to mean that you earn enough that it isn't a burden. If, for example, that woman earns enough money that him only paying that light bill is not a burden on her, then why wouldn't you date him? If I was earning enough money that you paying one bill doesn't burden me, because the reality is, if I can afford my mortgage, if I can afford my electricity bill, if I can afford all these things for myself, if you are not burdening me, then fine. But if you are a burden on me, if I can't afford to do this because you can't afford to do it either, then that's a burden. That adds strain. And it's probably the same for a lot of men. That's why you say a lot of the times men who complain about these things are because they're not earning enough money, because they feel the burden of that woman on them. And that's why I would say it is, you know. But everyone's different. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So are you paying the first day or not?
Yes me?
No? Yeah.
No, I'm not paying the first day. No.
Okay, end the conversation. Thank you. Next lady, who wants to go next? Who wants to go next? Because they don't believe in what they're talking about. They really don't. No, they expect us to play our role, but they want to do whatever role they want to play. It's okay, Precious.
About things.
I'm just setting you up. I'm only playing with you. I'm just setting you up. I'm playing with you.
My whole point is we should just move away from men and women. Move it to just traits. That's all.
I'm with you, baby. I was winding you up a little bit. Don't worry, I was winding you up. I was being cheeky. Charlene, you got your mic open. Go for it. Oh
yeah. So I just wanted to say that, I mean, from the sounds of it, Precious, your value is equality, right? And for me personally, whenever the subject of equality between the sexes comes up, equality becomes synonymous with men and women being the same. And that's where I have a fundamental disagreement. But let me just say this. I remember going to Quick Fit to get my car repaired, right? For Sean, this is a car repair shop. And I remember the first time I went in there for a quote, I call it bloked up because I was going onto the mechanic's floor. I was surrounded by men and I felt the need to armor up. And I noticed the way that I was speaking, I didn't feel good to me in my body at all, but I felt like I needed to do it in order to accomplish the goal of not being ripped off, not feeling like they thought of me as stupid or weak or incompetent. I felt the need to do that. And I remember the way that the mechanic was talking to me. And I remember thinking, he's talking to me like he would talk to another man. I remember that. And then they took my car. The next day I went to go and get it. And I had made a decision that I will never do that again because it didn't feel good to me in my body. I wasn't being true to myself in regards to who I know myself to be as a woman. And I went in there and I softened. I completely softened my voice. I relaxed into my body. I deeply was myself. And the entire conversation between me and this mechanic changed. The way he treated me with tenderness. In fact, he started throwing in things that I didn't pay for and saying, oh, I just fixed your left wing mirror, no charge. These men, they rallied around me and my vehicle to get it fixed and to keep my budget low. And it taught me a big lesson about what it really means to deepen into your own essence. Because I don't believe that femininity and masculinity are just social constructs. I think that social constructs have come in and distorted a lot of things. But I think feminine and masculine essence is just about you being deeply yourself as a woman, a man being deeply himself as a man. And when I was deeply myself at Quick Fit, I saw the communication change towards me. I felt different. It was very powerful. And I said to myself, I am never doing that again because it felt like I betrayed myself a little bit. And that's it. That's it. I'll never do that again. I'm just saying, baby.
Appreciate Charlene. Who wants to go next? Who's next? Who hasn't spoken yet?
Okay.
Go for it. Yep. Conversations again spicy.
The main thing that annoys me about these conversations is that, and this, whichever side it is, when one side is triggered, all of a sudden the contradictions and the nuances and the obvious and obvious certain things all of a sudden go out the window. But that's because there is a defense that then begins to happen where it can become quite personal. And what Charlene just said, I think Sean started it off, and then Charlene just mentioned it, that difference. Because as a man, right, or let's just say the phenomenon of men saying, hold on a minute, this is how we feel about A is a new thing, right? But what men experience is when we're trying to explain something, there isn't now ladies asking questions to actually understand, okay, what are the scenarios you're talking about? There is a quick defense, which usually falls into you're insecure, you're the problem, it's your fault, just put up with it. I mean, imagine how many ladies were told your husband is like this, just put up with it. They'd say, no. So again, why is it one way and then another way? It doesn't make sense. And this is not a conversation to be quick defensive about. It's to understand from a man's point of view how contradictory this sounds. Because, you know, if we talk about the financial conversation, if a woman wants a man who is equal or above, that's fine. But there's a difference when it comes to us, because we're happy to take a woman who doesn't need to earn that much. If her character is A1, we're cool. We're not going to love her any less because she earns less than what we do. So this is the nuance of the situation and understanding, like Kojo was saying, what behaviors actually come with some scenarios. Because most of those women who earn a certain amount of money will tell you why they want a man who's equal, will tell you why they want a man who is more. And they prove every bit of, I'm going to be disrespectful, I'm going to be combative, I'm going to treat him a certain way. So I don't understand where this defense comes from that ignores there's a whole bunch of women that will contradict what you're saying. I mean, even ladies saying, oh, I love it when you take control. I mean, that provides a place of safety, right? But if a man says to a woman, I love it when you take control, there's women that are going to tell you, I find that unattractive. There's women that will tell you, is that a fetish that you have? Do you want to be kicked in the balls? You know, and this is what there's a difference in how we view things in the world. I like it when you put me in my place. Ladies will say, I don't, find men attractive who acquiesce, who don't stand their ground. Women have always found successful men attractive. there's successful, you know, women that is brilliant to see, but it's a new thing that we're now dealing with, and we're having to see, okay, but how does that translate into a relationship? Because you're right, if certain traits are poisonous for everyone to have in a relationship, it's an issue. But the problem is it a natural? I'm have to figure out a way to say this carefully, right? But the natural state of a woman sometimes can be contradictory to what she's had to do in the workplace to become who she is. And that battle going on inside of her is displayed for the world to see in her relationships. That's the real conversation that we have to see. So if we're saying just pick a woman like that, just put up with her, etc., that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense because there is a conflict going on the inside. In the same way, if a man was a bit more feminine than other men, but then he feels the need to, okay, but I need to be more masculine. That's a conflict going on the inside. And you're going to have a whole bunch of women that will say, I don't find this attractive. Do you get what I'm saying? So if we're going to say that there's an issue, if men have an issue with a woman who is more masculine, who is more, her character traits are more of a certain way. But hold on, we understand that there's an issue when a man is more feminine, the opposite way. We understand that. We don't have an issue with that. However, I do understand where we're coming from as people is different. The trauma that women have been through, the bullying, the abuse, has created an uneven playing field. So when we're responding to these conversations, we're responding from two different avenues. So I do agree with, okay, what place do we need to get to? The last thing I'll say is, you know, when you look at Dwayne Wade and the Gabrielle Union situation, no one was saying, well, he should have picked Dwayne Wade should have picked a different woman then. People were saying the reason why she's like that is because of him. Anyone that came to Dwayne Wade's defense was ridiculed. The reason why she feels she has to be that way is because of him. Like, what? Where did all that come from? So this is why the contradictions are loud and clear, because which one is it? Is it okay for her to be that way? Or is it not okay? And the man is the fool. And this is why sometimes as men, we're trying to hear what you're saying and it's cool, but we don't feel listened to. We don't feel like, are you actually trying to understand us? Or you're just defending a way to be that actually is not helpful for us? And we're telling you this is not okay, but you don't want to hear that. But we understand it's triggering. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I mean, I can say more, but 2 minutes is up.
Thank you, my dog. Who's next? We'll get a lady in there, you know? This conversation is spicy. Oh, wait. I think I might have added too much spice to the combo. Yes. Oh, Penny, you going to say something? Go for it.
I'm slightly confused.
Go for it.
So can I ask, what is the situation between Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union, that she was bossy? Was that what you're trying to reference?
So the whole situation is that she felt like she had to take care of her. She felt like she still had to work to a certain level, even though she has a multi-millionaire husband.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to, I guess, not burden him, like Precious is trying to say, but also the anxiety of still having to take care of her family. Let's just say if this man leaves or something goes wrong, I still need to be able to take care of my family. Which, by the way, is why certain men say I need prenups, but that's a whole different conversation.
So what's your point, sorry?
So in that whole issue that happened a few months ago, you had people all of a sudden coming out the blue and saying it's Dwayne Wade's fault. It's Dwayne Wade's fault why she's like that. Even though it's clear this is trauma from young, but the wave of people blaming Dwayne Wade was ridiculous. When for him, he was saying, no, this is how my wife is. I'm allowing her to do these things to soothe her anxiety. Whether you agree with that is besides the point. But the reason why she was like that wasn't because of Dwayne. He could take care of everything that he needed to. But the scenario, the scenario was one where she didn't want that. So what I'm trying to say is, if we're going to say that it's okay to be like this and men should just don't say anything, you have no say on it, she shouldn't change, etc., then why did Dwayne Wade get the blame? Why was it, if he was different, she would be different? And this is where the contradictions lie, because as you're speaking to men about these things, we're understanding you, but in the context of the actual relationship that we see happening, what men go through, these contradictions become problematic, because then it becomes a scenario where it's a catch-22 thing for men. Where if you go left, it's a problem. If you go right, it's a problem. You go up, it's a problem. You go down, it's a problem. And this is where the versus.
I don't know. I
This
think
is
this
where, hold
this
on.
conversation.
Hold on. And this is where the versus mentality comes into it. Because we're not actually getting to a ground where we're discussing, this is the scenario. How do we deal with this scenario without delving into blame? Which is why I love Kojo's channel, because we look at her behaviors. Why are we like that? And how can we unwrap it and get to the source of how we can be better? But you said you're current, you're African. Are you currently in Africa, Penny?
No, I'm in
Where?
the UK. I'm Namibian, by the way. Yeah.
Where?
I'm in the UK.
No, where? So I'm in London, of course, but we're in the UK.
You want to know my space where I am. Safety, my dear.
No, there was a difference anyway, but yes, cool. But there's a reason why I was saying that. But yeah, forget it. That's cool.
Anyways, I think this conversation favors men. I mean, I think no, honestly, I don't see how as a man you're a victim in this situation.
You won't see it.
I really don't.
That's the problem. You won't see it.
Hold on, Jay. Hold on. Let her land.
I think Precious said earlier on that this conversation becomes challenging because the onus is put on women to have to change. And what I find challenging is there's this assumption that if two couples who are successful, men and women, that there's no room for accountability. Like as a man, where is your accountability to also hold or be gracious enough to understand that this is the dynamic of the relationship? You're obviously not dating a woman who's going to wait for you by the door, a maid. Like that's not the woman you're dating. You're dating somebody who's equally just in the corporate space, doing as much as you are. For me, I don't think it correlates to behavior, that she becomes disrespectful. I'm not sure where that notion came from. Maybe there is examples that people have. I don't think that's true. I think that's a lie that's being told to undermine women's abilities and, as I said, minimize their achievements. But I think this favors men. Like if we're having to shift and change every time to mold ourselves, we're trying to adhere or to appeal to you. So I don't see how this is at all how is it as a man you're being undermined? Like I don't understand. I think we're listening, and I think that's why a lot of women are okay. You guys don't like what is hard about this is if girls take the approach of soft life, it's a problem. She's a gold digger, she doesn't do much, she's just waiting on a man. Then you get the ones who are achieving and trying to make their own money. Oh, now she's aggressive. What is it that you men want? Like we are confused. So I think for me, if it's a matured man and if you're talking about a successful man, I think they have to be open to understanding the dynamic of the relationship. There's a power play, yeah, maybe that may come into it, but there should be room for conversation. There should be room for deciding what your relationship should be. I think Sean said this, you need to know your relationship and make it what it is. There are some women who do date guys who are a bit more feminine. I think you brought up this point. There's an assumption that all women just want alpha males. That's not true. And that dynamic works. Maybe like you brought up Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union. They're not really the conventional pair, to be honest. Like they're not the conventional pair. And I think we sometimes put all these celebrities as the people we look up to, but they're not conventional. Like even though he had a talent and had money, he's quite feminine, I would say, for a man, and it works for them. And I don't think there's anything wrong. I think he likes that about her. And there's some men who like women who are much more stronger. That's okay. And there are women who like men who are a bit more feminine. That's their dynamic. There's not one size fits all. And I think we should move away from that space. And I also agree with Precious that it should be based on traits rather than blaming each sex, because we do have to work together. Like, I don't think and I think even Jeannie Mai, however you say her name, is showing us that anger, which has always been attributed to Black women, is just a character flaw, is a trait that everybody embodies, whether white, Black, or Asian. Thankfully, I'm kind of glad that she's not Black. And my hope is that this stereotype moves away from Black women, because in any relationship, such or traits won't work, especially in the dynamic that they have. Jeezy's a different type of man. He's not the type to probably discuss things further or want to look at how we both think. He's probably like very like, you know, straight to the point. This is how things have been working for me for the past 40 years. You're not going to come into my place and tell me what I need to be doing. He just doesn't seem like the type who's cooperative and open to having discussions about how you're thinking and feeling. Like, he just doesn't look like that type. And it's unfortunate that she's, you know, had to end up in this way. So I don't know if I made a point there, but
you did. But there's parts of it where what you're describing is the exact same thing for men in some areas. And this is what I'm trying to say. If we're looking at Dwayne Wade, is saying that's a useless example to use because they're conventional. We agree, but why was it being used to put down a man? This is the point. I was the original one in this conversation that said it's less about the work and it's more about character traits. We agree. I said that before, Precious. And this is where it's like understanding the full picture of what's being said and what's going on. It's like you're not trying to hear what a man is saying and just saying, I don't see how you're that. No, we're telling you what we're experiencing. If you're telling us what you're experiencing and our response to you is, oh, it's not really, you're going to feel a certain way. So if men are telling you this is the experience, why some men feel a certain way based on this character traits, then the conversation is, so what is happening in these scenarios? Because ladies specifically themselves are coming out and saying, that is true. I did feel that way. That's why I treated him that way. Same way that Ebony Williams said, I ain't dealing with no bus driver, etc. The issue is because you wouldn't be able to respect a man who is of a certain level. This is the conversation. That's what I'm saying. The versus thing, which I was trying to say before you came in, is an issue. But it stops people listening and taking on board, okay, what is this person actually trying to say? Because let's put it this way, if we're all trying to play the victim, that's not what we're doing here. All we're doing is saying, this is what's happening. On both sides, there's an issue. The reason why things don't progress to solution is because whatever the conversation, there's one side who's not trying to take on board and is usually being defensive. That's what's going on. What's going on, Koja's face? What's going on?
very true, very true. I mean, I agree with you. I think as a woman, I couldn't date somebody who makes less than me, and that would just throw a span in the works. That's just the truth. I know myself, and it's not to say that we won't. Huh?
Why can't you date someone who makes less than you, Penny?
I just did it. I just did a Zeddy. I'm joking. No, he has to make money. Like, he has to provide. It's not. I'm African. What do you mean? No, but on a serious note, I think it's very challenging. I think for a woman, and for me, and if I've also known people who look like me, it's not easy. It's not to say that you can't do it. It's very challenging. But do I think that because I'm successful and I do well, I cannot respect him? And I don't think that's true. I mean, that's just my point.
And that's a good point. Listen, I don't think anyone would disagree with that point at all. And so let's clear it up a bit more. Yeah, I like the chaos. I'm not gonna lie to you. The pepper was in the soup. I liked it a little bit. I didn't want to clear it up. I wanted it to be a bit messy. Thank you for bringing that point. Let's clear it up a little bit. I don't think any of the men are saying that not you, but a woman becoming a boss is the issue. And I think JR sums it up with the perfect quote, which is, it's not that you're a boss, is that are you bossy? So what I said earlier on was that sometimes what happens, sometimes what happens is the conflation of the two actually does happen. So what can happen is the woman becomes a boss and she is bossy and she can't turn it off. And again, ladies, maybe you can correct me. What I think some of the fellas are saying, especially what Jay was also kind of alluding to, is that, for instance, if we're saying can't turn it off, and you say, well, why should we turn it off? We should be able to just do what we want to do. Then it actually negates the point we're making, which is that when we're saying to you that there are certain traits that as men we don't like, and then what Jay is saying is that when we say them, what the women are saying is, you just got to deal with it. You just got. I mean, that's what we are. Right? That's what we are, and we got to just deal with it. And that's what sometimes
I'm the opposite. When I come home, I don't want to do anything because it's tiring to be the boss girl, like in the office, managing everybody. when I
This is
come
the
home, I want somebody to be like, I
Hey,
cooked.
no.
But the black man ain't trying to cook for me. I
Penny,
cook to come home and cook and manage
Penny,
the home.
rewind.
So
No, Penny,
for me,
rewind.
I would love a guy who's like an alpha, but also can be like, okay, babe, you come from work. Let me look after the home.
Oh, Penny.
No.
Penny, Penny,
That's
see?
Lulu.
That's
That
exactly what
is
I'm
Because
saying.
I'm
Lulu.
tired. I don't want to come home and
This is why we're
wear
at
the
where
cape.
we're at, Penny. And we love you to pieces, but
My
it's the
God.
Lulu. And that's why we land in the same place, because you want us to be your best friend that you can talk to all night. Then you want us to tear your back out. Then we got to bring in 2 times
I
more
mean, is
money
that too
from
much
you.
to ask for?
It don't exist. It
Can
don't
a girl
exist.
just ask?
Pick your poison. Which one is it? You got 2 things you can get. You got to pick the 2 and move on.
It seems like white men do it right though. Like they could be
The
your boss
lies,
man and they could come home and cook.
the lies. Keep lying to yourself.
Penny trying to add spice to that. Listen, let me be real with you. I'm gonna say a comment which will maybe sound very wild, right? But I want to say it, and you can challenge me, ladies, on this, right? I've learned that to stop listening to what women say.
Mm-hmm.
I respond to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to what you say anymore, because women tend to give idealism rather than the realism. What you do is what I'm going to follow by. Because when I intentionally asked the question in the beginning, like when I said to Precious, I said, but who's paying the first date? You looked at me and you knew you weren't paying on the first date. Like, you know, we inadvertently follow certain rules as men and women. We inadvertently, whether we like them or not, right? And the ideal man that is attractive and the one that women mostly want is a man that encompasses most of the masculine traits as much as possible, whether it's gender norms, whether it's been socialized, engineered that way, could be. But either way, the one that tends to get that is a person who fits into the as many masculine traits as possible. You know what I'm saying to you, right? So what I'm saying in this, what we're trying to highlight here is that in this conversation, women bosses are not the issue. The issue is the attitude. The issue is what comes as a result. Sometimes, not all, some women end up behaving with, which we as men are saying, we don't like that behavior, because in reality, right, I have a job to do, which is protect, provide, and to be a priest over my home. It becomes very hard to do that when I'm being challenged. And someone will say to me, well, it doesn't matter. We should be able to challenge you. And I'll be like, well, when you challenge me, like when you challenge me and you do it the way you're doing it, and I think this is where Charlene was really touching on and kind of hitting home with it, which is there's a way, and me and Sean spoke about this as well. There's a way that when you challenge, are you trying to, and this may sound misogynistic for some of you guys. I'm gonna hold it and I'm gonna take it. You challenge me like a man in a relationship, I'm looking at you like, what the hell? Why would you do that? I don't want to be with a man. There's a feminine way and art to how you challenge. You know how you know? Because you do it at work. Y'all know how to do it at work. Y'all know. Y'all know how to be sweet with your bosses. So you know, right? Now, I'm not saying that's in every single instance. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that what we are saying as men is that there's a certain energy that sometimes is carried by the title of female boss that can be antagonistic. It's not the role itself. It's the energy and the attitude that some women encompass when they get into those particular roles. Now, I'm sure the ladies will say there are some men who, when they get in those roles, are rubbish too, and they don't do well in those positions. And I would agree with you. But since the title is talking about why do men avoid these women bosses, and not why do women avoid men bosses, women don't avoid bosses. In fact, the more bastard some of these men are, women are going to them. Why is that? Because they still encapsulate some of the masculine traits that are needed to, quote unquote, for women to feel attracted to. You get what I'm saying to you? So I'm not saying women should be bosses, by the way. Again, you know what I mean? But let me get Max. Max hasn't spoken yet. I haven't heard a voice. I'm gonna get Jay after, because we spiced it, but
Yeah, I don't know if you can recover this one. It's like putting too much salt in something. But well, apparently there's solutions to that. But yeah, I think what I'm trying to understand is, and I think you literally just said it in your final sentence, Kojo, but my thing is, from when a man is requiring a woman to contribute to the home financially in a major way, I feel like that is already setting her up to need to be a level of boss. And that's where I get a bit like, because everything you guys have said, it's neither here nor there for me. I actually hear your point, right? But I think if that's the starting point of I need you to contribute to this home financially in a way that would then require her to be some sort of boss outside, as you've said, Kojo, being around that energy, being in those spaces, it impacts you. It does. So then when she comes home, she's naturally going to bring that back. So that from that angle, it feels trap-like. But if you're saying like, no, she doesn't really need to contribute here, her main position is different than that, then yeah, she wouldn't necessarily be in those spaces, have those influences and so on. And you may still face those issues, but you shouldn't be from the same angle, you know? So yeah, I think that's just one thing I need clarified. If we're requiring major financial contributions, is that not a trap?
Oh, that's a question right there. Get someone else to do it. Before you go, Jay, I want JR to go because since he hasn't spoken in a while, you can answer a question and then you can add to the conversation. So, because I haven't heard from you in a little while, go for it, JR. She asked the question.
I think in a majority of relationships, both parties are going to be required to contribute financially. Like soft life will work in very rare circumstances where the guy is actually earning a lot of money and it's not going to impact on his lifestyle whether you work or not. And that means you'll be so-called pulling your weight in other areas of the relationship, i.e., will you be having children together? Okay, you're going to be staying at home looking after those kids for the first couple of years. Or if you're intending to go back to work, cool. What are we going to do about the kid situation? Childcare is expensive. Okay, so now we both have to contribute to the household a lot more because we got added mouths to feed. So that's where I'd answer that. But the thing that we need to realize is you can date a boss and you can be a boss. And like I actually advocate for bosses to date bosses. Like if you're high powered and in corporate and or a successful entrepreneur or whatever, date someone who you can relate to on that, right? You can relate to what you go through every day. You can relate to the work experience. You can relate to how much money you make. And then when you come home, if you're not able to leave that at the door, then you will see what it's like to date someone who is high powered and doesn't have the ability to focus on a relationship and is still in treating you like an employee or in work mode all the time. You're not going to like it. The relationship's not going to work. You're going to feel like someone's talking down to you or ordering you about, patronizing you or undermining your opinions, or always ready to challenge you, you know? And also it may even take the fun out of your relationship because you're going to be sitting there like, hey, honey, shall we schedule in some sexy time at 8 o'clock tonight? You know, like it's going to take the fun out of actually going with the flow and getting to know each other and all that stuff. It's going to be so structured, so regimented, so boring. All right. So, you know, in theory and in the ideal world, yeah, it sounds great. Make a lot of money and this, that, the other. You're putting in a lot of hours into making that money. And oftentimes you're sacrificing your home life. You're sacrificing that time with your partner. All right. The higher, the more you earn, the more you're actually required to, you know, the more responsibility you have at work. And that may require you to manage a team or fly away or be away from home for extended periods of time. So your relationship might suffer. When you do get together, the last thing you probably want to do is butt heads on some of the most menial things that keep a household running. And that's oftentimes what's going to happen. I think when you date someone in a power dynamic, whether you're male or female, if the guy earns more, you're going to feel eventually at some point like he's taking advantage of the fact that he earns more. right? He's able to have more say in the house because he pays more. You're going to feel a way about that. And vice versa, if the lady's earning more and the guy doesn't, it's very quick for the guy to feel like he's being demeaned or feel less than, right? So unfortunately, I think the best solution is to date someone who's in your power dynamic. And if they ain't coming by the dozen, then you just got to sit and wait it out. Stick to your standards, wait it out. When one eventually comes, hopefully it works for you. But to expect people to just have to put up with what could potentially be controlling or just butting heads all the time, arguing all the time, conflict in the home, the last thing you want to do is have conflict in the home, because then it becomes petty, and then it becomes repetitive, and then it becomes a cycle, and then it eventually erodes your relationship. So the character traits that you do pick up from work, yes, it's okay, because you're at work. You're out there in the wide world trying to earn a living, trying to create a name for yourself. You're doing that in the home. You already have created a name for yourself. You already created a bond. You've already decided that you want to pursue a relationship together. So there's no combativeness in the house, as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to hear, oh, well, you know what? I earn more than you, so I'm going to tell you. You're not going to tell me nothing. Yeah? Like, and I'm not going to be that type of person to be talking to you like that either. What we're forgetting here is most relationships, and I'm not talking about the ones that are partnerships and business deals and all the other arrangements that people are trying to do and situationships. No, most relationships, if you want them to be successful, you have to have love first. Like, then love, and then appreciation and gratitude for the fact that this person's even with you to go through this journey with you, through thick and through thin, or through sickness and health, or however far you take it. But when you start focusing on finances, which go up and down, yeah, you lose your job tomorrow, then you're going to be turning around asking your partner to help pick up some of that slack. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female. And you can't just go out there and get the job that you want, because there's people that will hire you off or tell you that they don't like you for that position. There's sometimes 15, 20 people vying for the same position as you are. Right? So don't let money fool up your head and get you carried away with its importance and significance in the relationship. The relationship requires both of you to come together, not who's going to win and who's going to lose and all this other stuff. That's going to destroy your relationship. It's not a battlefield. It's love that you're supposed to be going after at the end of the day. That's what you're supposed to be working towards. All the bickering and arguing, you have children listening to that. They're going to grow up with deep-seated resentment of how you guys are treating each other. They might even side with one or the other over what you're arguing about. So I think going back to the basics, find a partner that is, first of all, compatible. And if you're basing it on finances, it's a very slippery slope, because nothing's guaranteed out here like that. I have maybe 4 or 5 different streams of income. I'm not balling though. I ain't rich. I ain't running around blowing my money. I'll tell you that now. The UK does not allow for such things. And even if it did, I'm not throwing my money away and wasting my money. I'm very much a spendthrift. You feel what I'm saying? I'm very much about making sure my bills are paid. And if I feel like treating myself or my lady or whatever, then I'll do that. But we have to have that type of relationship where we're not fighting, arguing, and none of that stuff. Because what I'm not going to do is come home, we're bickering, arguing every day, and then you're expecting me to treat you like my queen and my princess, despite you challenging me every time I open my mouth. I'm sick and tired of the masculine, feminine debate, the male versus female debate. We're not the same, and we weren't meant to be the same. We're not created to be the same. You like, if you want to have the same experience as what a man does when he goes out here, I'm not sure why, because it's hard. It's tough. We don't just wake up every day, go out there and smile and good things come to us. We have to create our own path out here. And part of the reason why it's difficult for a lot of women to do it is because now you're realizing what we go through as well. It's just that we can't come home and moan about it all the time. We literally just have to just grin and bear it. It comes with who we are. We go out there, we might not get as much money as we feel we're worth. But you know what? We have to work our butts off, learn and educate ourselves in order to get that. And when you want to do it, yeah, I hear that. When you want to do it, it's all good. Like, it's all love. If you're with a partner that's compatible and you have that vision together, you can do a power couple thing. That's all gravy. But when you start turning your attention to the other person and what they're doing and what they're not doing and this, that, the other, trust me, it's a slippery slope. And that's where I think we're going wrong in this conversation. You shouldn't be battling each other because we're not the same. We weren't meant to be the same. We're meant to have different experiences and we're meant to complement each other. And that's where I land my plane.
Oh, thank you, JR. Thank you for ruining the conversation. But yeah, no, thank you for telling us off. We appreciate it, JR. You made some good points. I'm not even playing with you. I like joking around, but you made some good points in there as well. You're right. Sometimes it is a battle between the two of them. I want the battle to continue. So, guys, the battle must go on. Listen, I'm gonna keep everyone to 2 minutes now. I've been lackadaisical on the timing. I promise you, I will lock you off after 2 minutes. So let's keep it short. Let's keep it succinct. When we're making a point, get in there for 2 minutes, then you're out. Okay, all right. And any rebuttal that I allow to happen, 30-second rebuttal, please. Let's not go any longer than that because it gets long. I'm the first offender from the last session, so I appreciate you guys sticking with me. I offended on the first session, but I'm gonna keep it to 2 minutes maximum. Okay, all right. So get your point in, get your point out. Okay, all right. Get your point in, get your point out. All right. Jay, you want to say something, and then we'll go to Sean after. Stanley, I see you behind the scenes. Go for it.
Today's economy doesn't cater towards what was possible 60, 70 years ago. 60, 70 years ago, women were happy to accept the lifestyle that the man that they wanted to marry was able to provide. Now people want more. So the case is, if you don't want to, if the question is, again, paying for something then brings a woman into the masculine and A, B, C, D, E. Well, the question is, are you going to be happy? In order to not to do that, are you going to be happy with what a man is providing then? If he can't afford, I don't know, a 5-bedroom house, he can only afford a 2-bedroom, whatever, are you going to be happy with that? Because that's a solution, to be happy with what a man is able to give you. Because then the conversation to men would be, guys, be with a woman who is happy with what you have. Not with a woman who is never going to be happy with you. Don't do that. Yeah, you can keep going for more, but ultimately you want her to want you. As JR was saying with the love. And to me, this is kind of what I think about. That question is a fair question, but at the same time, it's not addressing what's happening in today's economy, which simply is, you need 2 households, unless you're going to be okay with not having the luxuries or the lifestyle or the soft life that, you know, or the luxurious soft life that you want. You can still have soft life. We have, what is it? Not Rich House, Poor House. I think one of those types of shows, or I think it was one of those types of shows where the wife is at home looking after the kids, but they're still poor. I mean, she's got a version of where she doesn't have to work and all that stuff in general. And by the way, looking after kids is not an easy job at all. I've got to. I know. I live with my oldest one. I know it's not easy at all. You know, so again, let's look into the nuance. A lot of these conversations we have, we don't deal with the nuance about what is exactly is happening in today's society. Because what is happening in today's society tends to not match up with how people actually feel. So, and that's where the contradiction starts. Sometimes that's where it finishes. Because ultimately, if you want that level of soft life, you have to see the percentage of how many men are able to provide you that. I earn a lot of money, but the society that we're in now, it's like, okay, maybe I need to add a few more. Whereas 10 years ago, it would have been fine. Like, I acknowledge that. But what I can't deal with is a woman who's telling me I'm not enough. That's not going to happen. But I'm done there.
Thank you, Jake. Who's next? Who hasn't spoken yet? Because I know we went round. Yo, it's your last point of saying this one, because we're going to go into our dilemma. So it's our last point of saying this topic before we go into the dilemma. I'm scared of the dilemma because the dilemma is going to cause carnage. Go for it, Sean.
Yeah, I was gonna say, listen, I know you were starting a bit of carnage, but I think you were onto something when you were, being cheeky with Precious and a little with Penny, in that I think the way we move this conversation is when we're both honest about the realities, right? Yes, we do not want women to be subjugated to men, but we also have to understand patriarchy is in place for a reason. The construct itself doesn't need to be totally abolished, but we do need to exercise and evolve, right? And we can't be the same, we can't operate in the same dynamics of a relationship that we did in 1950, because we've evolved, people have evolved, women have grown, right? So I do think we need to move it along, but we can't just throw it all away. So we do have to acknowledge that men and women are different. And there are, for the most part, unless you're just living a totally different life and you want a completely different way of living, and that's a very small percentage, because when you get down to it, most women want a man that does the positive aspects of what being a man is about, and vice versa. That's what most men want from their women, right? So if we could just be honest about that and say, hey, listen, I'm not just going to throw away the traditions, but I'm going to say, let's work within the confines of our relationship and see what works for each other. But don't just say, okay, I'm going to abolish patriarchy. Men and women do the same things. No, we don't. Men and women exercise leadership very differently, and it's for a reason. There's things women can do that men can't, and it should stay that way. Right? But we see what happens when we push it too far and men try to do what women do and vice versa. It's unnatural. It causes chaos. So we need to find a healthy balance. And I think that's where the conversation happens. And then we can try to figure out what works well for our relationship. But we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm done.
Thank you, Sean, for that. Stanley, welcome to the conversation. We're talking about why men avoid women bosses. I hope you followed the conversation. You have 2 minutes. I will wrap it up after 2 minutes. Go for it.
Yes, sir. I'll be quick. Salute to you, Kojo, and the panel. I've been watching you guys from before, ready to love. And I just finally decided to get in and chime in. Being 52 years old in America and down south, but raised up in the East Coast, it's a different mentality down here. So roles have to be defined early in the relationship or the marriage, and they have to be stuck to. Now, like he said, if the dynamic changes, then you got to be able to adjust fire. But what I find today is that, especially down south where I'm at in Arkansas, the women, it's all about what can you do for me, and I'm going to keep my money, and you got to be the provider, and I don't have to work. I won't work, but I want this. Now, I'm just saying this is just what I'm experiencing. I'm not saying I'm speaking for the majority, sister. I'm just talking about from me, being a disabled veteran, 2 daughters that are 20. I'm 52. I've been married once, divorced, and I'm currently married. But my wife now currently says she don't have to work at 55. She don't have no disabilities, and I got to get it. So I got 3 streams of income, 3 businesses, car dealership. I got a government contracting business, and I also have a clothing line that I run. I shouldn't have to do it, but because of the things that we're trying to do, you gotta be able to maintain. So I'm just saying roles have to be defined definitively, and they have to be maintained. But what's going on now is topsy-turvy, and roles haven't been defined. Roles are all over, and it's a gray area. And so until we get those things defined, we're going to run into these problems all along. Our children are going to be raised up with these. I'm a woman, but I need to have these man tactics. Or you have boys that don't step up to the plate, and then you got women that are saying he's not a man, and so these things have to be defined. That's all I have to say. I think I did 2 minutes for my first time. I appreciate the panel, appreciate the discussion.
Stanley, thank you so much, man. And I hope you get to come back again as well, Captain. You're always welcome. And we appreciate the nuanced conversation you just brought to the table as well. And thank you for your service as well. I appreciate it. A couple of people in the chat have put that as well. So thank you for that, Stanley. Good perspective. Who's next for the last bit of 2 minutes before we go into our dilemmas? Anybody else want to contribute 2 minutes before we go? If not, I'll go into straight into dilemma. I can see some faces in here telling me they done with the conversation. But yeah, anyone else want to add the last 2 minutes before we go to dilemma? Anyone else want to add the last 2 minutes? If nobody opens their mic, I will go to the dilemma. All right, let's go to the dilemma. Thank God. All right, cool. So, all right, listen, we've got a dilemma we've got to go to last few minutes, last half an hour or so to finish off the show. This has been going around for the last few hours, or actually last few days, actually. I've seen this particular situation. And I thought I'd bring it to your table because I saw some of the comments, and I don't know if the women were actually being funny about it or if they were being real. In fact, some people have actually messaged me when I put it on my story and said they don't see anything wrong with it. So I thought, why not bring this up? Like, I think this could be good to discuss and see what people think. So let me just bring this up to you guys. Here we go. And add this to the screen so y'all can see. Let's have this. There we go. Come to the screen. Go to the screen. All right. Cool. All right. So this dilemma came up for the last few days. It says a guy couldn't afford to get his girlfriend's car fixed, so she asked her ex-boyfriend and he helped her. So my homegirl needed $1,500 to get her car fixed. She asked her man, he didn't have it, so she got the money from her ex-boyfriend. Now her boyfriend want to break up. Was she wrong? She wanted to get her car fixed. It was going to cost $1,500. Her man could not pay for the car to be fixed. She asked her ex-boyfriend, should she give me $1,500? And definitely the Nigerian said, yes, here's $1,500. I'll give it to you. No problems at all. Nothing's ever going to be wrong with me giving you money. Don't you worry. You can come again. I want to get you guys' thoughts. Shout out to my Nigerians because they will pay for anything. I'm telling you, listen, at this point, I'm thinking myself getting a Nigerian wife. But no, all jokes aside, want to get your thoughts and perspectives on this particular issue. Is this a problem? Is this a violation? For her to ask the ex-boyfriend, for $1,500, dollars, pounds, whatever you want to call it, is a lot of money in any particular currency at this rate. Is there an issue here? This is what I want to ask. Is there an issue here? I want to know your thoughts. Is it yes or no? You can disagree. Don't be afraid. We have respectful conversation around here. Yes, go for it.
Sure. If I'm being unbiased, I think sis chose violence. Like she knew what she was doing. To go for the ex and not her dad and not her brother, not her friend. Why the ex? Like I think that is very snide. And because if roles were reversed, that would be a piss take, right? So yeah, putting away like not being a woman and being in that situation. But I think that's not right. That's not right. I wouldn't advise my friend to do that. And if she did, I'll tell her not to tell her it's the ex. Tell him not to the ex. So she chose violence. I think that's quite wrong. I don't think she should have gone for the ex because it's just disrespectful. I think it could also, and the weird part is it could just be that in that moment he didn't have the money, the boyfriend now. But he could get it maybe 2 days from now, and now you've just caused chaos going to the ex because you're undermining his ego, right? And undermining his manhood. And I think it's just wrong. But the situation could be that maybe they're also fine. I don't know. Maybe he I don't know. No, it's wrong. I can't defend her.
Thank you for your initial thoughts. I will have questions for you guys after I get everybody's initial thoughts. Precious, what's your thoughts? I miss you, by the way, Precious. Just want to let you know. Can't wait to see you on Saturday.
Don't do that, because now you're putting a narrative out there. You know what you're doing. But yeah,
I mean, I'm seeing you and Jay and the rest of the gang on Saturday. Sorry, I should have added that context. My bad.
Yeah, you should.
Go for it.
Anyways, I don't know. I feel like this dilemma is really silly. I would just say that, look, number one, you should, if you have a car, you should be able to afford to be able to fix your car. But life happens. It is what it is. If your partner, well, number one, I don't know why you're asking for your partner, asking your boyfriend for money to fix your car. That's number one. That's a bit bizarre to me. I wouldn't do that. I think if it's a situation where you can't afford it, then you should find other means. I mean, yeah, a family member, a loan, I don't know, something, but I don't know. I personally just wouldn't feel comfortable asking my boyfriend for money, that large amount of money.
The Precious, why? If you're having a hiccup and it's your partner.
Because I feel like, I guess if it was a husband, it would feel different. But as a boyfriend, I just feel like that's a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot. Maybe that's a experience thing, but it just feels like a lot. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to do that, but that's not something that has been in my experience to be able to do. So it wouldn't be my first point of call to ask a boyfriend for money. I would also say that, yeah, asking your ex for money is it's a bit unfair. I think, you know, you probably shouldn't still be in contact with your ex, and if you have enough contact with your ex to be able to ask them for £1,500, there's questions there, and so that's why I would just say I think there's a lot of things going on there that just feels very disingenuous, and it feels very just roundabout. But yeah, I wouldn't. I think it's a bit unfair to do that. But I also feel like there should be a conversation by the person in the relationship, not a full-on breakup. Because I think, I don't know how long these two people have been together, but if the relationship is going okay, there should be a conversation. There should be. I feel like people.
I'm gonna come there. I'm gonna come there. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask that question. Don't
Yeah,
go there yet.
I think people.
I think
people do an instant jump so quickly of, okay, we're over. There should be a conversation. If you're hurt and you're offended and you feel disrespected, communicate that and say that and have that be an honest conversation and say, you hurt my feelings. I know I couldn't afford it, but maybe I was thinking of a way to do it. Or maybe, you know, I would have helped you figure out how to get this sorted, but you decided to go and do that. I feel hurt. Have the conversation. Why does it have to lead to breaking up a relationship? So yeah, I think she did the worst in this case, but he also, I think, maybe overreacted a little bit.
Appreciate Precious. JR, initial thoughts. Violation, no violation, what we saying?
Yeah, that's definitely a violation. No doubt about it. And you know, if you want to get help from your ex financially, then like Precious said, I would want to know. In fact, I don't even know if I would know. I would just expect that there's definitely more to your relationship, since, you know, why is he an ex? If he's able to fork out that much money for you and drop everything to come and help you like that, you know that he's there at your beck and call like that, then I would have serious doubts about how faithful you are to me, because I'm thinking, if he can drop that type of money for you, what you do? Like, if he calls you up one night and says, you know what, I'm lonely, you need to come over. Yeah, he lent you that 1,500, and you're gonna tell him no? Okay, you know that he's probably gonna feel a way about that. So if I were you, you know, I wouldn't be taking that money. I wouldn't be asking the ex to do it. Ask a family member. See if any of your girlfriends can rally around to help you. I will do my best. If you ask me and I didn't even have it at that particular time, I'll go and rally around and try and do something to help you. But if you're going to involve your ex in a relationship like that, then you've put the relationship in a very precarious position. And I don't think there is much conversation after that, because how can you justify it? Like, you know, at the end of the day, he was there, you asked him, you could have gone to anybody else in your phone book. So I think that is Splitsville after that. You know, it's going to be very difficult to move on past that one.
Appreciate you, Max.
Yeah, violation. Not something I would do. Not something I would condone. I'd only say that in a scenario, it might not be as much of a sacrifice as we're painting if it was a scenario where the person has it like that. So it's not like they even feel like they're losing the money. But that doesn't change anything materially. It's a violation.
Appreciate that. Sean. Okay, he might not be there. Charlene.
Yeah, it's all been said, really. It's just, she went to him, the ex, because she knew she could. And that's the issue. The fact that she knew she could means that there's still an attachment there. There's still an opening. My experience is that men who are not your family would only provide in that way if they are taking some sort of responsibility for you, meaning that they think that you are still theirs. So that's the attachment, and that's the issue. She knew that she could ask and get it, and that's why she asked. And yeah, that's it, really.
I love that. Stanley. I'm going to start asking some questions.
Yeah, I'll just tell you blatantly that's disrespectful, and it undermines the fabric of the man that you're in a relationship with. It basically cut him at the knees. I think about the movie Dead Presidents when Lawrence Tate came back from the military, and my man Cuddy was providing for his girl and his child, and he said, "Look, man, you can't even get the groceries for her, man. The way that she's acting towards you, that's all because of me." So I mean, right now you messing with this brother's self-esteem. Me, I would have given the brother a chance, your boyfriend a chance to make resolution. Hey, let me get you a rental car while I try to gather this money up to get your car, or if it was a meaningful thing, it could have been a mechanic misdiagnosing. It could have been something that was less than $1,500. You could have went and got a second, third opinion. But just the mere fact that you went and tapped into this guy, your ex-boyfriend, it just makes it. I'm just talking about for me. I'm being transparent. If it was me, I feel like, hey, the relationship is over. Rock steady with your ex, and I'm pressing on to the higher mark. There's no need for for me to even go down this route. You didn't even give me the chance, the opportunity, or the respect to try to come up with a resolution plan, because as guys, we like to try to solve things, and you didn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. So blatant disrespect. She's not rocking with me. I'm not rocking with her no more. Peace to the nation. I cut Sling low.
Appreciate it, Stanley. Jay, yes, tell us your thoughts on this. Oh, you're muted, bro. You're muted.
Don't know why I keep doing that. But as a man, I know that when you are able to give money to your woman, or you're able to, it could be random, or it could be you're coming to the rescue to pay for something. As a man, you see the response, and the response is very favorable, whether that be verbally or in other ways. And the opposite is also true of some women, where you cannot come to the rescue. There's a level of disrespect that may come, but it's even extra when she feels she can get it from another man. That right there is a violation, emasculation. It will always be problems. And it's interesting because I'm Ghanaian, but I follow a couple blogs. One blog is a blog in Nigeria called Joro, and I usually see this dilemma there. But simply because in Nigeria, the thought process around the man providing and different things is, it's still global, but it's a lot more intense in terms of the expectations. So you have a lot of women who justify these things and saying, my man he only makes this. You can only give me this. What's wrong with me going to an ex or to another man, etc.? And some women do sleep with the guys, but it's always a violation. Remember, I said some women, not all. It's always a violation to me. If whether you're a man going outside a relationship to solve an issue that your missus could do, or whether maybe you can just be patient and just wait. but you decide to go and get another woman to solve that issue. Usually for us, it might be sex, it might be something else. In the same way, for a woman, it's still a problem. Like, you don't go outside your relationship knowing it's going to be an issue. Because do you really go and tell the person, yeah, I got this from an ex? You're not going to do that, so you know it's an issue. So from that point onwards, if you feel that crossing those boundaries is worth more than your relationship's over. I'm sorry. Any guy that deals with this, leave. Just leave. Same thing. Any woman, just leave.
Beautiful. Okay, so everyone's had their opinions now. Let's ask this question. Okay, all right. So she wanted 1,500. Can we first agree? I want to just first see if we can get a consensus here. 1,500. Would we agree that's quite a lot of money? I'm gonna take it from a perspective of us, not a perspective of rich people. Us as a perspective. 1,500. Would we say that's a lot of money? I just want to see yes or no. Just nod your head. Maybe you can shake your head or whatever. We say you don't think it's much. 1,500 a lot of money. I think 1,500 is a lot of money. Can't lie to you. Penny, no. 1,500 not. 1,500 not. I thought you were shaking your head like I was like, oh, baller. Get that ring, baby. I don't mind marrying into money. But anyway, so we can kind of consensusly agree that 1,500 is quite a lot of money for a majority of people on the panel. Okay, so my question is this. Should he be expected to give £1,500 for her car just because he's her man?
What is give if it's paid? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Wait, ask the question again. I heard it, but I want to hear it again. Go on.
No, if he's helping her pay for the car and it's an emergency, and he has it, I don't think that's wrong. The partner now, not the ex.
Yeah.
So are you saying that should the partner be able to be? I think yeah.
Should it? Are you expecting the? Like,
Not
let's
expecting.
say like
not expecting. It's nice that they can, but ideally, of course, if you're going through an emergency, ideally you'd want them to.
Okay. Well, okay, I hear that. So you're saying, Penny, why you laugh at that? So, I don't know why Penny's laughing.
Once again, these things must
because there's so many guys out there, they'll probably be thinking, "What?" No, but I mean, you don't expect anything. Of course, you don't expect anything. But if it's an emergency where she's approached this partner, and my assumption she doesn't do it all the time, then yeah, it's like, thanks, babe. But if he doesn't have, then we find another way. This is where they go into the ex. But no, hopefully that's not the reason. No, you shouldn't expect. You shouldn't expect. That's my answer.
Kojo.
Anyone else want? Is it expected? Yes, Tony.
Quickly, I have an experience with my wife. She wanted this car. I told her to get this specific car, but she wanted this other car. It ended up being a money dump. So I took the title, I sold the car, and I put it towards another car. But she refused to get the car that I told her, but she wanted to go get that car, and it brought a whole bunch of strain to the family. But you know, like I said, if you're going to be responsible for her, then you take that on as the role. And I'm talking from a husband now, boyfriend, girlfriend. Those things have to be stated because $1,500 is not no chicken scratch. You know what I'm saying? So you got to know that this is a relationship that's of purpose, meaningfulness, that you're going to shell out. That's not just no, hey, free dinner and little rah 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 ha ha ha. But $1,500 is you like really vested in the young lady. So that's all I'm saying.
Love that. Anyone else want to pick on this? £1,500. Do you expect the man, if the man had it, and I'm not saying that he has it like he's got it, like he's got money, like that. I'm saying he has it, maybe in the savings or whatever. 1,500 for your car. This is not a loan, by the way. This is him giving it to you. So we know he ain't coming back. Are you expecting for him to give it to you? So I'm asking that question there. Your boyfriend and girlfriend, you are not married. This is a boyfriend and girlfriend situation. So are we expecting? And I want your honest, true answer and why you'd think that particular thing, because I think this is where we have some real detailed conversation. So, who hasn't answered? Man or woman, you can answer now. Yes, Charlene, I see you. Oh, okay, Jay. Jay will go. So, Jay, then Charlene. Go for it.
No, Charlene can go first. So.
Okay, go for it, Charlene.
Well, it depends. And let me say this. If I'm in a relationship with a man and we are dating with intention to be married, and we're at a stage in our relationship where he considers me to be his intended, his future wife, then it wouldn't even be a case of me expecting it, but I would ask. I wouldn't expect it, but I would ask. But all of those factors that I've just said would have to be in place. He couldn't, we wouldn't be in the beginning stages. You know, we're just dating. And we would have to establish certain things because, like I said, I think that men take responsibility for a woman when you are his. So the question is, does he consider me to be his? Do I consider myself to be his? So there would be a lot of questions and maybe a lot of talking before I would even consider asking.
The point, Jay, talk to me. 1,500. Are you expected to give it? Will you? Actually, it's different for you because you're not even the woman. So, would you feel pressure to give it? Would you feel obligated to give it if you had it? No, and I'm not saying you had loads of money. You had a little bit of, you had your savings there, a little bit of savings there. She asked you 1,500. Let's have a real conversation now. What you saying?
Well, first of all, I agree with Charlene, but before I come to that point, to me, would I feel pressure? The answer is no, I will not feel pressure simply because there are also, in the context of boyfriend, girlfriend, there are also expectations of the woman that men shouldn't have. You know, although we all cross boundaries, we all cross lines, all that stuff quite frequently. But I think it goes down to what are the requirements of your relationship in the first place. You know, and then if that's not happening, is that causing an issue there? Because I thought you was able to do these things. But to me, quite frankly, again, that pressure is not there. But where I agree with Charlene, the thing with men, if we're able to do something and we really love the woman, we will do it. Like, we take pleasure in doing it. We take pride in doing it. And like I said earlier, because I've done it, you can see the response. Hopefully there's appreciation, but you can see the response. It makes you feel like, okay, I like feeling responsible for my missus. I like taking care of her or coming to the rescue. So that's the way I look at that. But that then leads me to, are you dealing with a guy who just does it anyway? Or are you dealing with a guy who actually appreciates the way you have been towards him? So to me, it goes down to, who are you as a woman? Because I have to feel something for you to do that. Like what I've done for my missus, for example, no other woman's got from me. But that's because of how I feel about her. That's because of how she is to me. But I wouldn't have done that for any woman, even if they asked me. I would have felt very strongly, I don't know if this is the best thing for me to do. And I've been in situations where I have done things and it's come to slap me in my face. So I think in this day and age, a man has to be responsible. And I'm not talking about a millionaire or nothing like that, but a man has to be responsible and decide, okay, if I'm going to do this, am I in the right place in my relationship to do this? Because I don't want to be frustrated because appreciation or whatnot is not there. Or my expectations are not being met.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Can I be honest with you?
Yeah, go on.
You know I'm not giving it. Why the frick have you not got 1,500 in your account?
Wait, but you're generous though, bro.
I am, but I don't care. But why have you not got 1,500 in your account? My point is, my thing is, I don't understand why you asked me for 1,500. Why do you not have 1,500 in your your account? Why do you not have a miscellaneous fund? Why am I being footed a bill of 1,500? It's too early for that. I'm so sorry, guys. Find someone else to do it. That's why you found your ex-boyfriend to go and do it. But in all honesty, 1,500 is a steep. It's a steep thing. So unless we're really like we're in this deep, and we really are, we're in this thing where I can see ourselves getting married. I think you're absolutely right, Jay. When you see yourself getting married and you see yourself actually spending time with this person permanently, I think you will do it, right? Because you're already seeing yourself as two becoming one. In reality, if I don't see myself becoming two as one, I really ain't gonna do it. Get someone else to do it, right? But if I see myself as, and of course, if I get into a relationship, I'm always trying to see myself in a marriage situation in that aspect. So it will be. But my thing is, I'd have asked a few questions. 1,500 is not just coming out of my account. There's a few questions. Why are we asking myself 1,500? Why haven't we got a miscellaneous account? Where are we financially? What's your financial budget at this moment? I'm gonna because I'm a budgeter and finance person. So if we got to this point, it would have never got to this point because I would have known that you don't have it. I would have budgeted. I'd be like, well, we budgeted for this miscellaneous, so this shouldn't be happening. But I'm gonna be asking some real questions as to why we're in a space where 1,500 is what you need for your car, which is abnormally expensive. You must just write that car off. I'm gonna be honest with you,
Yeah,
and
true.
buy a brand new car. But there will be a question. I'll be like, yeah, I gotta figure out why you don't have that money yourself, since you guys are bosses and working now as well. So clearly,
No, remember, we can't be bosses. We have to be at home waiting. Because if we're bosses, we're so aggressive. So
if that's the case, you should. If that's the case, you're driving my car, which means I'm fitting the bill anyway. So in that case, that's what he is. You know what I mean? But no, I mean, I would say that really would be my first question. I'd be like, wait, 1,500. Okay, so let's look at the financial
all
situation
those
here.
answers are provided, and she gives you the answer. She says, "Yeah, it was just a difficult
Yeah,
month. It was just like, I
that's
had
correct.
to give money to my mom or something." Like she'll give you a reason.
Yeah, listen, if that's the case, then I can happily work with it because things do happen. Do you know what I mean? Things do happen. These things do take place. They do happen. Now, if we find out this is a chronic problem, we have to deal with a chronic problem. You know what I mean? So that's my thing. You know what I mean? It's about whether this is a chronic issue or not. That's how I would look at it. You know what I'm saying? Who hasn't answered this question? And then I'm gonna ask my carnage question. So who hasn't answered this question? Max, have I ever heard from you as to whether you expect it to be 1,500 or not?
No, I mean, what everyone says, I kind of echo really. Like, I don't know if it can be an expectation at a dating stage unless it is something you have sufficiently advanced in. I've had a situation where a guy's asked me for 5K and I was like, oh, okay.
I hope you gave it, Max.
Huh?
I hope you gave it
Yeah,
as a
of course I
female
gave
boss.
it. Stay there, don't worry. I'll give it to you too. No, but yeah, like the situation was nuts because ultimately we weren't dating and I had been asking him to show up more in like the way that he not even necessarily pursued, but in the way that he was present, and he felt like that was too much of a request, but he had the audacity to
Babe,
want 5K.
you're a boss babe, Max. That's why you're a boss babe. That's why.
I must be.
Max, he had the effrontery to ask you for that fight.
Honestly, it was crazy. Because then I said to him, just out of interest though, like if we were dating, is that something you'd expect? And he was like, yeah, I'd expect you to find that money or make a contribution to it. I said, thank you for your time.
Wow.
Good girl.
Wow.
Best answer.
Oh, glory, glory,
Yeah.
glory.
The world is beautiful.
But
Anyway, but yeah.
it's a good thing that he told you this up front.
Right.
So
Because it was just a
you waste
scenario.
no more time.
100%. Because it's not a scenario you often find yourself in. I've never been asked for 5K by a guy I'm getting to know. I don't know if others have, but that's not my norm.
No.
So yeah, I do think in terms of expectations, it's always good to have them clarified. And I wouldn't expect £1,500. I wouldn't expect him to fit that at the dating stage. No.
You tell no lies. You tell no lies. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for answering that, Max, as well. So, I think, 5K is quite a lot. And Max, that's crazy. I won't lie to you. But you should have supported him in those moments. You know what I mean? Y'all should support us in those moments. It should be expected that y'all will pull from your wallets and your purses to support me in a time of need. Because you know what? Women and men are equal. And y'all should also contribute the same way. But anyway, maybe my pettiness at the door. My actual real question in this situation, which I just had a minute ago.
You're just gonna ignore her and me, huh? Okay, it's fine, no worries.
Oh, sorry, Presh. I don't ask you. Oh, sorry. If you expect it, I apologize. Oh, but darling, because I know your answer already. You understand? We know your answer. I know your answer. I know your answer personally. Yeah? You're gonna say no, but you're gonna expect it. I know you personally. Me and you, we know.
I'm not. My
I'm
answer
joking.
is no, I wouldn't expect it. To be fair, I wouldn't ask. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't ask. And if I'm being honest, if we were married, I probably still wouldn't ask. If I'm being honest, like I wouldn't.
Precious, we gotta work on that.
I agree on that one.
You're the other extreme end.
Yeah, it's a trauma response. It's definitely a trauma response. I wouldn't ask. I think I would just figure it out myself. I mean, maybe I would tell you about it and be like, oh, my car, I need to find 1,500 or I've been told it's 1,500. I'd probably be like, do you know any mechanics that would probably fix it for cheaper? But I just can't imagine myself.
But isn't that a masculine trait in a way where you just can't allow your men to handle things?
It's not even that.
I don't want to handle it.
Yeah, exactly. These men don't want to handle it. No, I'm joking.
Back to our point. Anyways, we're not submitting. I'm joking.
Jay, remember it's me. It's Precious. Remember me? Family. Remember, okay? Thank you. Where he comes and attacks me. No, I'm saying I would I wouldn't ask just because I think I don't know. I have a thing about being a burden on people. That's one thing. It's a big thing for me. I would also feel uncomfortable asking someone else for money that isn't related to me, or like, I don't know, it just would feel, if he offered it, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, no. I mean, if he offered it, actually probably I would initially say no, and then if he offered it again, I'd be like, okay. But I would never ask. I would appreciate it if you were wanting to help, but I wouldn't ask that of you. Yeah, I don't think I would do that even if we were married. I would hope that you would want to help me, because I think if it was me, I would want to help you. And I would offer my help if I could, but I wouldn't ask for it, because I think that puts me in a position where, like, now I think it's a situation where it puts me in a position where you can disappoint me. It puts me in a position where you can not support me in the way that I would want to support you, or I would hope that we would be able to support each other. I'd rather just do it and figure it out. And if you can help me, I will always accept your help. I would never refuse your help, but I would never put you in an uncomfortable position to potentially have to say no, and you feel uncomfortable, I feel uncomfortable, and it's just uncomfortable now. So yeah, I wouldn't expect it. But if you want to help, I would definitely appreciate it, and I would be really appreciative. But yeah, I wouldn't ask.
I'd help you. I hear that. I respect that.
Thanks, Kojo. I appreciate you.
No worries. With my credit card.
I mean, it's better than nothing.
No, I mean, I think this is a real conversation, right? Because I think because the deeper conversation underneath all of this is expectations. It's not even the amount. The amount is a part of it, but it's more the expectation. So, like I said, some people would expect, like, for instance, we're saying boyfriend and girlfriend, and that's why we start off with boyfriend and stayed there, and just saying, obviously, is it expected? Like, if you didn't have the money, would you expect me to come up with the money? And if I didn't come up, let's say, like the gentleman here, he couldn't come up with the money. Am I going to be looked at poorly because I could not come up with the money? And I think that's a question we should ask. maybe to the ladies, would I be looked at differently? And let's keep it a buck, let's keep it real, because I think Precious, you've kept it real in this, like what you've explained here. You know what I mean? Like real spit from the ladies. Would you look at a man differently if you didn't have the 1500, you ask him, he doesn't have the 1500, would you be looking at him differently? Like let's say as well, he couldn't siphon a solution, right? He couldn't siphon a financial solution that you can get it cheaper or you can get the money for it. Let's say he hasn't got the 1500. Okay, or maybe he said he's got maybe 200 he can pay or whatever, right? This month or whatever, right? Are you going to look at him differently? That's a question for the ladies. Are you going to look at him differently in all reality? In all reality.
Okay. I mean, for me, it's a relationship. He's not my father. He's my partner. So I would like for him to help or provide solutions or help me think about ideas. Would I look at him differently? I mean, I'll be annoyed if I'm honest, but I wouldn't look at him differently now, because I don't think I would put that responsibility on him, because it is. I think you asked the question, like, where's my role in it? Like, how did I get to the point where I didn't have that money? So I don't think, even if I asked, for me as well, I think I get, okay, maybe I'm not as extreme as Precious. I don't feel like it's a burden. Not extreme to go. Like, so we don't share the same views, sorry. Not that it's extreme. I would think it's okay to ask, because we're in a relationship, we're sharing everything else. You know, why shouldn't I be sharing this issue with you? But I wouldn't expect, and I wouldn't also want to put that responsibility or that burden, as Precious said. Yeah, so it's more, for me, it's more like you're helping me, but I wouldn't think that it's your responsibility and that's what you need to do. I think those are two different viewpoints. So I wouldn't look at him differently. But yeah, that's me. That's
fair. For the ladies, would you look at him differently? And we want honest opinions here, because this will help some people, I'm sure, because maybe some people are in this situation, they're quietly in the chat, we're not saying anything. Would this change how you looked at him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if this was a situation, emergency fund, need 1500 to help pay for this car, because I'm guessing if you don't get this money, the car gonna be out of commission for a little while. Maybe you can't even go to work the way you used to. Maybe you get in the bus, and you know what I mean. Who knows? But and we know some people have allergic reactions to bus. So we want to know, like, what would be your thought process to this? Like, would you feel some type of way, ladies? And what if I said, and what if someone said, even lend me a car? What if I can't lend you my car? So I need to go to work. So, you know, go for it, Max. Yes, Max.
Yeah. So I think it depends how he responds to the problem. If his response is basically like, that's a you thing, I will look at him differently. Because to me, yes, there's a financial issue, but you have to be able to at least contribute some way. And I don't mean financially. I mean, are we going to talk through it together? Are you going to, Precious made a point about, is there some cheaper solutions? Even if I do have to take the bus every day, are you maybe encouraging me in that and saying, oh, babe, you know, it's just these 3 weeks, you know, you got it. Like, I need to know there's some sort of like emotional investment in my issues as well. And it's funny because bringing up that same scenario I just told you guys about, when that guy asked me for 5k, I don't know if this is bad, but I said to him, I'll pray for you. Like, I'll keep you in my prayers. I said, I'll be praying for you that you'll get the money, you know? And like, I was giving him some long-term solutions, and he came back to me and said, like, he didn't like that because he said it was a financial problem. It needed a financial solution. So even though I was willing to like talk about maybe like, what about this? What about that? And like prayer, he was like, that doesn't work for him. So for me, I don't see things like in one dimension. It might be a financial issue, but there's other ways you can contribute to it that may not be finance. And if you don't make any contribution at all, and you're just not interested at all, then I think I would look at you differently.
Fair point. Charlene, you look at him differently?
Well, I wouldn't see it as his responsibility. It's my car. And yes, it's my car. I would potentially, I think I might look at him differently if he wasn't willing to put his head together with mine to come up with a solution. But the onus isn't on him. it's my car and we aren't married. Even if we are married, we can still put our heads together and come up with a solution together. It's not his job to rescue me or to save me in any way. But yeah.
Okay. I like it. So ladies who answered and told us that they're not, that there's not necessarily an expectation per se, that we're not expectation, they're not going to necessarily judge you differently. I think they've answered very politely. You're not getting the punty panties after this. So just want to let you know, the punty panties have gone dry. So after that, 15,000, just want to let you men them know. Precious, yes, you want to say something before Jay goes? Okay, because these men don't think they're going to get kunti kanti, they're going to get nothing.
Kojo keeps forgetting me, clearly.
I apologize. Sorry. Sorry. Precious, I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you.
Don't start. No, I was just gonna say, I'm just happy Jeff is not here because it would have been a whole load of things.
Oh, he's there. He's in the comments.
I can see some of the comments that he's left. No, I was just gonna say, I think the only thing that would make me look at him differently, for me, support is a big thing, and feeling supported is really important. And it doesn't mean that you have to. Support should never mean that you have to put yourself at a disadvantage, or you have to, like make things harder for yourself to help someone. I think, I think that for me, if I guess I think about it, if the roles were reversed, I would try my best to help in like thinking of a solution, looking at mechanics, finding things, like actively doing things that I feel could help in the situation if I couldn't, give the money. I think if I felt like I was alone in the situation, that's when I would look at you differently. You don't have to have accountability over my asset or my financial burden. But if I'm being made to feel like I'm alone, and it's as what Max said, it's a you problem, then that means I'm not safe in this partnership. And that if something happens and I need to rely on you, you're not going to step up. Even if it means not stepping up financially, there's other ways that you can step up. But it means that that's not something that you're willing to do or that you're prepared to do. And I think for me, that's something that is important. If I can't step up in one specific area, then my natural disposition is to find other areas. I'm the problem solver in most situations. If someone comes to me with an issue, my initial reaction is like, okay, so what do we do? How do we do this? Have you looked at this? Is this working? Like, that's just how I react. And I guess if I don't get that back, it feels very much kind of like you're being left to the wolves. You don't have to pay for me. You don't have to pay for my car. You just have to show that you're in this roller coaster thing with me and that I'm not by myself. That's an important thing, is not feeling like you're by yourself in a situation, because life happens. Life is going to throw stuff at you. And I always said, because I always get asked, like, for example, when you're like starting to get to know somebody and someone asks you, what's your favorite number? And I always say, my favorite number is 2, because it means that you're not alone. And for me, that is my ideology in life, is that as long as there's one more person in this, you are not alone. And that needs to be the ideology for the relationship. I can't be by myself in this. It doesn't mean that you have to, put yourself out, but it means that you have to show up in a way that means that I'm not by myself. Yes, Katie, I went over my 2 minutes. Apologies.
Don't worry about that. So, question to the ladies then, just before Jay goes. So, if I needed 1,500 for my car, and I asked you, would you be assisting?
I will lend it to you, but I want it back, babe. You want me to be honest or no?
I know. Hey, I'm not mad at it. I respect
I'll leave
it.
it to
Thank
you, babe, for like a month or whatever. But yeah, do make it. And I would like some interest too. Maybe a rose or something. Thank you.
No worries at all. She wants some flowers on top of that. Any other ladies too? Like if the man needed 1,500, your man needed 1,500 for his car because he ain't got the money for it. Would you be assisting? And I want honest truth. Would you be assisting?
If I had the money
Mm-hmm.
and we were in a position where I felt like this was a thing, then yeah, probably.
Okay. Respect that. Respect that. Charlene, Max?
Yeah, I agree with Precious.
Love that. Charlene? I think she's cooking. Okay, she's in her feminine bag. All right, cool. Oh, there you go.
I was trying to press the unmute button and it wouldn't press. Pressed it about 3 times, it wouldn't press. Oh man.
Tell that truth and shame that devil.
The devil is about to be ashamed.
Shame that financial devils.
Well, again, it's like I would have questions. Where are we? Where is this headed? Why doesn't he have the money? Is this a pattern? Is him asking me going to change the dynamic of our relationship? Is me giving it to him going to change the dynamic of our relationship? What's happening? Why he doesn't have it? Am I going to feel like his mama if I give him this money? There are all of these questions, Coach. Do you get it?
I'm with you.
And I'm literally thinking out loud as I'm talking to you guys, because this is what would be running through my mind. Yeah, that's the honest truth.
That's fair. Well, is that what you responded for the other way around as well? Did you say that? Would you be comfortable if your man was like asking you questions as to why you need it? Would that, or would you rather more expect him just to trust you and give it? If it's the other way around,
I wouldn't. So my answer before was that I wouldn't expect it.
That's fair.
But I would, if I'm his, and he is claiming responsibility for me, then I would ask. He doesn't have to give me anything because I'm not his wife.
That's fair.
At least not yet. So
that's fair.
But I'm not thinking about, such a nuance, man. There's such a nuance here of I want to have his back and I don't want to be his mama. And I want to feel like he's got me because that's what I want. I said a mouthful, but you get what I'm saying.
No, okay. I get you.
Yeah.
I know. I get you. Jay, what was you going to add?
I was just going to say to the guys, first of all, thank you, ladies, actually, I feel like this is a conversation where you have actually just been honest. No trying to play loop the loop. You've just actually been honest. No. Wait, listen to me. I say that because I'm going to say to the men, this is where we need to listen and understand who is the woman in our lives. How is she going to feel certain things? So we need to have these conversations theoretically so we know how to respond in certain scenarios. Like I said earlier, being able to come to the rescue does something. So I 100% understand when some women feel like they have to come to the rescue for the guy, they're not going to receive it in the same way. Now, is it unfair? Yes. But is it just one of those things that is just life because men and women are different? Yes. Because we are seen as their providers. But I'll give a different scenario. I know someone who had 3 women to choose from. He didn't date any of them. Very Christian relationship. They were just having normal conversations. He would call all of them friends, but he was in need of 2K one time. Max, this is to you, by the way. He was in need of 2K. No. I know that's the price actually, 2K, but it was for something else. Might have been his rent or whatever. And long story short, because we haven't got long, the woman that he actually married was the woman who actually gave him the 2K. Now he didn't ask; she just gave it to him. And he said, if she is that selfless and not going to look at me negatively because of that, he did pay her back, by the way, then she's showing me if I was to be with this woman and marry her, this is the heart I'm going to give, the heart I'm going to get. Now, I'm not talking negatively against any woman who will not do that. I understand why you won't do that and you don't have to. I'm just giving a scenario where in some circumstances, it can, I guess, increase the heart that the man has for you if you're willing to do that. But you have to have discernment. Honestly, you have to have discernment when you're doing things like this, because some guys will just take your money and run. We see it all the time. Guys stealing calls, stealing credit cards. I mean, a couple of years ago, we had Fraud Bay, right? We had a great song, by the way, but we had Fraud Bay. So, yeah, that's just my 2 pence. But for me, it's more to the guys just to understand the type of woman that you're with and how you can really come through for your women. Because most women do want to feel like the man that they're with can take care of them, especially because the background that some of you come from. And very quickly, actually, the last thing I'll say is, I know someone where the parent couldn't work anymore. And obviously that created a dynamic in the house. But the issue that the person had was that he also wasn't someone who stepped up and said, okay, although I can't contribute, as a man, I'm still going to lead and, orchestrate certain things and do whatnot. And this is what the ladies are saying. If you can't contribute, okay, but how can we get to the solution? I want to feel like we're together in this. I want to feel like you're working with me. If not, why are you there for? You can't give me the money. You're telling me it's just your issue. Why are we together? We shouldn't be together. And I agree with that.
I agree.
Yeah. So just as guys, just pay attention. Just pay attention. This has been a great, honest conversation. Just pay attention and ask yourself some questions such as, what type of man are you? Because like Kojo's saying, you're not going to, but I will say this. When you meet that woman, you and Precious haven't started dating yet officially, but when you're able to get to a place, right, where this is the person, there's a certain bit of your heart that's gonna open up. That's what I have to say.
Sorry, I'm gonna mute myself. Sorry. Oh God.
JB moving mad. So when let me put it this way, right? I would help. My thing is, it's qualifying whether this is chronic or whether this is a one-off. And what I mean by that is, of course, one-off is within reason as well, right? It's whether this is, if I'm dealing with somebody who's a chronic financial issue. I think because I've dealt with previous girlfriends who have had chronic financial issues where you're not being sensible with your spending. Like when I see things that are not like, that's my trauma probably, and that's my thingy. I cannot date somebody who's not sensible finances. If you know you're not sensible, if we work to a budget and I see that you can't stick to it, I'm gonna be out, because I can't deal with people that have financial liabilities. And I don't think any woman should deal with any man that's a financial liability. What that means is, if you know you earn a certain amount of money for your month and you make a certain amount of money to pay your bills and you find yourself in minus consistently, I'm going to be like, no, this needs to change. Or otherwise, maybe I don't need to be here. That's the kind of situation. So, like, if that 1,500 came out as a request, and it's like, we've been in a situation, I've been borrowing you money, and I even say borrowing because it's not coming back. It's been going and going and not coming back. I'm gonna look at you some way, right? I'm gonna look at you some type of way, and because for me, it's about principle of how this is only gonna get worse. I'm gonna be covering you for the rest of my life, and it's gonna be worse. There were bigger financial holes. This is not a good start for me. So it's more of that kind of case. Like, the 1,500 is an issue. Past girlfriend, I gave her almost $1,500. She needed a situation. It was a one-off. We had worked a budget. You know what I mean? We had a budget sorted out, but she had something that had to be paid off. I gave her the money for it. So I've already done the 1,500. I've already given someone that, and I'm saying, and partly I kind of knew the ratio was not going to go to the end, but because I was like, you know what, I care about you and I want to see you win, and we sat down, we did a budget, you stuck to it. I see that you're not trying to move mad. Here's the money. I think you need to be, I think we all need to be financial stewards and be correct. But if you're coming to me in 1,500 whole gap, and you're looking at me like I'm broke, I'm looking like you're a fool. I'm broke, but you are sitting in the same position I'm in. You don't have 1,500 to your name. You don't have 1,500 to your name. And you're looking at me like I'm broke. Oh, get the frick out of here. We in the same boat. You trying to row in a different direction. You in the same boat. Sit your ass down and row with me. Okay, we 1,500. We can't get it together. Let's start a savings plan because clearly we ain't gonna get this money to the end of the year. So let's start saving, put some money aside. Let's look at your financials at the moment. Okay, let's put some savings aside, both of us, and work this out together. That would have been a good financial plan for me because I like financial stewardship. But you know, again, depends on where you are and what situation, how that person presents financially. You know what I mean? I like financially steward people. Who's getting police in the area? Who's in GTA?
It's
Sean,
me.
is that you?
Yes,
Oh, it's
I'm
New
trying
York,
to
that's for
chime
sure.
in.
Go for it,
I'm
bro.
trying to chime in because I got to bounce in 2 seconds, but I'm right with you. And when it's it's one thing if an emergency comes up, right? And it's an unexpected expense. But when it's rent, it's like, all right, so rent took you off guard this month. What's gonna happen next month? You know, because rent don't just knock at your door like, hey, I need to be paid. This is every month. You know it's coming. And so what happened? You know, did you spend excessively? Did you make a mistake? Like, you know, what's the reason? That those would be my question. And I think, you know, similar to what Jay was sharing, I'm just so glad the ladies were honest, because it just goes to the point that men are expected to be financially responsible, and that's okay. And I am totally with it. I expect that. I accept that there is you know, we're just in two different roles. And I just love the honesty, and I just want us to be honest across the board about how very different we are and how we have very different expectations. And I think we'll be better off when we can talk like this. Like, hey, listen, brother, if you broke, I need you to fix it, or you're gonna have to move on because I'm not gonna respect you. That's what it is.
And that's the honest truth.
I bid you all adieu.
Man.
Grace and
appreciate
peace.
it.
All right.
Bye, Sean.
Appreciate you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, bye.
Sean said he's got a young 1,500 for y'all. Don't worry about it. Yeah. I did have a point in this, my last few points before we get off in the last 10 minutes or so. I would say this, like if a girl did actually ask her ex for the 1,500, I will happily dump her right there and there. I'm not trying to have a long conversation. You're dumped. Because this violation is on a major scale. I think Brother Stanley said it earlier on, it undermines the whole entire relationship, but it actually undermines my leadership. And if you're willing to go and ask an ex who is an ex, a previous lover, and invite them into a present relationship, because I couldn't give you the 1,500, there will be other things you'll ask that ex in future. It's not a money thing, it's a principle thing. And if you don't understand that principle, for me, I don't think we need to be in the same boat. I don't think I need to explain that. What's understood doesn't need to be explained. So I think for me personally, as a principle, your ass will be out, and I'll be out, and I think we should go our separate ways. And I think I would call up your ex for you and say, hey, come and get her, because I think she needs you again. You know what I mean? Yeah, I would definitely be saying it's over as well. So I don't know how the other guys feel about it, but that'll be me. It'll be over. I haven't got time for that.
Done for me too.
There we go. Fantastic. Any other last thoughts, guys, before we get off here? Any last thoughts? Someone said, would you feel slighted if she had to go to her dad? I'd feel no type of way about it. If she went to her dad before me, even if she went to her dad before even going to me, I feel no type of way. It's your dad.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it, bro.
This is a personal circumstance. I'll only have an issue if I feel that you see the way ladies say, maybe I'm going to feel a certain way. If I know the type of person that your dad is, and he's going to feel a way about me as your husband and put that into your ear, that's going to be
his husband. Yeah.
That's going to be a problem. And I've been through that situation. So, yeah, that's the only time I'll have an issue. But if I know he just sees himself as helping out his daughter and it's not an issue, what about your husband and ABC? Then whatever, it's your dad, isn't it? Like, let dad be dad. Like, I got 2 daughters. If I can help them as a father, I will do. And as a man, I know, boy, if I can help my daughter out, I'm helping out the husband.
I think if marriage is different as well, I would agree with that. In marriage, I would be like, I would want my wife to come and consult me first before going to her father. Just because I think it looks bad on both of us. It looks bad on the relationship. It looks bad on me as a leader too, that you've gone to your dad before asking me. I think it should be a conversation that we have first. And if you say that, if we come up to a solution that, hey, let me go and ask my dad, then fantastic. We've made a decision to go forward in that respect. But I wouldn't want you going straight to your dad and asking him for the money without really just first and foremost having a discussion with myself. And vice versa. I wouldn't want to go to my mom or dad to ask. I mean, I haven't asked them for any money in years, so I wouldn't be going to them. But you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't expect that situation either. You know what I mean? So yeah, for me personally. But again, we're not rich. So maybe if you had rich parents, maybe we would. Go for it, Precious.
No, I was just gonna ask, would you feel some type of way, like if your girlfriend or wife didn't, like, maybe she mentioned it, but she didn't even ask you at all. It didn't even come up.
So, like, how do you mean? Like, she
how I said, I wouldn't even ask. I might be like, oh, they've told me it's 1,500, which feels a bit steep, and I'm gonna figure out how to get that going. And then I just move on. But I don't ask. I never, like, would you feel some type of way? Or would you just be like,
no, you're resourceful. Well done. You handled it like a boss. I mean, you handled it like me personally. Like, you handled it. I think
it
because
hasn't been handled yet. It's just me saying, I have this. I have to. It's the same situation. I've said it, but I just haven't asked you. So I'm moving as though this is my issue. I'm gonna have to solve. Even if we were married, would you feel a type of way that I haven't asked you, or that I haven't asked for your help, or would you be like, well, it's you, innit?
I'm not gonna lie to you, I have no problem with that. Listen, because I'm an independent person. I expect independence from everybody. You know what I mean? So if you can handle it and sort it out, I'm never gonna complain. As long as the money's not coming from somewhere like your savings, that is, like, we know we have a dedicated plan for the savings. As long as he's not dipping into finances that are, you know, maybe even joint or whatever. If we have already a plan in place, then no, I'm not going to question it. If you already sorted it, you've already sorted it. Do you get what I'm saying to you? I'm not going to feel no type of way about it, unless it again affects the plan financially that we have in play. 1,500 is quite a lot of money. It's probably going to affect the plan. So you know what I mean. So I probably would have a discussion about it. But yeah, if you already handled it and you had the money to handle it, and it's not going to put you in a dire position, why am I going to complain about it? You've handled it.
What if it's coming from my savings?
It's coming from your savings.
Because I don't have.
Are we married? Are we married, or is my boyfriend and girlfriend here?
Marriage.
No, then I see it as ours. So in marriage, I see my money as ours. I don't see it as mine or yours. I only see it as ours.
Would you have an issue with your wife having a separate account?
No, she should have a separate account.
And so if that so let's say she has a separate savings account, and the money's coming from there, then what?
Well, I mean, we should have accounts of all our accounts together. By the way, I know even though it's individual, we should have each other's accounts. That's how I would like it. I still want ours. Yeah, the only account I don't want to know about is your emergency fund. And I call it emergency fund because I always say this. I live by a principle, which is, even though I believe that I'll never leave you and you'll never leave me, by the grace of God, I always root for women having emergency funds. It's just a principle I live by. Because even though I know I'm not going to do nothing, it's a principle I live by in terms of my daughters and my sisters. I'm like, you should always have an emergency fund that you have personally for you, because anything that goes down, you may need it. It's just my principle that I personally live by. I don't really care what's in that emergency fund. It's absolutely up to you, etc., right? But in terms of all the other accounts, for me personally, it's hours. But you still have your own individual account that you rock by. Now, if 1,500 is quite a lot of money, you get what I'm saying to you, right? So if my qualifying question is, baby, is it gonna hamper you on a day to day? If it's gonna hamper you on a day to day, like, hey, baby, let's think about a plan. Maybe I can cover you in that moment, or whether we can move some things around, whatever. Because remember, I think of my money as hours, so it's not mine.
That's
it's
what
ours.
that's what I'm trying to figure out is how is that because I always say a helping spirit is important. Someone who has a helping spirit is really vital, because it might not be you might be able to do the financial thing, but are you helping in other ways? But I think it's interesting. I think there needs to be a conversation about what you're talking about, showing each other's accounts, because that's interesting for me of like, and like, if it's not a joint account, that's your business, what is in your account, in my personal opinion anyway. If it's not a joint account, that's you. Just like, for example, how people like, some couples are like sharing passwords. I'm like, why are you doing that? I feel like there should be some separation. It shouldn't be a situation where everything is like, whoa. Do you know what I mean? I feel like you should have a budget and buy it. But I think, yeah, that's a separate topic anyway. But that's an interesting topic to talk about.
Anyone else want to jump in on that conversation? I think it's quite interesting, actually, talking about accounts and how it looks like in relationship and stuff like that. Penny's screwing her face, so I already know she got an opinion.
No, I'm not screwing her face. I think differently, and I think maybe the dynamic of the relationships I'm in are probably different. I think transparency is important for me and my partners. So I think if there's nothing to hide, we share. I'm not to say that you're constantly looking through somebody's phone or accounts, but I think it's good to be transparent and open, and they're not to be secrets. So I think secrets breed just a sense of mystery, and there's no need. That's your partner, that's the person you're hoping to share your life with. I think you're sharing your body with this person, you should be able to share money. This is things that are fleeting, it comes and goes. So for me, it's not a big deal. And then to your point about asking, I think you should be comfortable to ask your babes, like, why are we together? If I can't bring a problem to you and be like, hey, this is what's happening, I'm having trouble, like I made a mistake, I shouldn't have put money this way, but do you have like £1,000 to spare, you just let the guy do it. I think you're like, what I'm hearing from you anyways, it's you feel uncomfortable with the aftermath and the idea that they might see you differently. Like, it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to let that guard down, but also it's important to feel safe. So it depends on the partner as well. Like, if somebody doesn't allow you and give you that space, like Max said before, if the guy is like, it's a you problem, of course you're not going to ask somebody like that. But then there are some guys who are like, okay, yeah, that's fine, I might not be able to give it to you now, but give me a few days. Somebody will communicate with you and like let you know, so you're not left worrying or doubting yourself or questioning yourself. Like I think what Anderson said, most guys want to give. Like, I think guys take, from what I know, guys take pleasure in giving to women. Obviously you have to be appreciative, but yeah, just let them go, enjoy it. That's what the patriarchy said. I'm joking.
She ain't joking.
Well, it's true. Like, we gotta survive somehow.
No, I mean, just to clarify, like, if, for example, we were married, of course there would be an initial showing of each other's accounts, but I guess it's a situation of, it doesn't need to be something that, as you said, we're keeping track of. That's the thing that I'd be like, let's not, because I'm not going to keep, I guess it's my thing. I'm trusting that you are financially responsible. I would hope that you would trust that I'm also financially responsible. Obviously, those things can change, but that's why I think like that's when the joint accounts are important. We both monitoring the joint accounts. Anything that affects us and our money, then of course, yeah. But like things like savings account, I mean, or check-ins account, or like your current account, whatever. Like, it's not incredibly. But I mean, if he asked me, I would show him. I wouldn't hide it, but it wouldn't be something I would ask to see. It wouldn't, unless it's like at the beginning of the year or something, we're making an annual budget. or we're making a quarterly budget. Okay, cool. We need to see what the situation for each of us is. And then, I'm happy with it being a quarterly thing or annual thing. It doesn't have to be like a monthly, or I'm checking to see what you're doing type thing. And I don't need your passwords for your accounts or anything like that. Like, you can put it somewhere because in case something happens, then cool. But I don't need all of that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, you should be able to ask your partner. You should be able to have that thing. I guess for me, as you were saying, Penny, it is the aftermath. How is this going to affect and change the dynamics of the relationship? Because I don't like, because some people are vindictive, and you don't know until they're given the opportunity to be vindictive. So it's about being wary. But of course, that's where you have the discernment to figure out who are you with, and is that person going to be not necessarily even generous with their money, but just generous with themselves and with their hearts and their minds and how they want to help and be there for you. And that's probably the most important thing.
I'm going to share a vulnerable moment. So my friend is married, and I said, and they've been married for 10 years, but they're a young couple. And I think the one thing that I found interesting, she was saying to me, so her husband works and she doesn't. She has a Cambridge degree, very studious, very smart, but he makes enough money for her to stay at home. And that's quite rare. I know that. One thing she said to me is, we have to have a joint account and he has to give me an allowance. That threw me off, right? As somebody who works for her money, I was like, what do you mean joint? Like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, no, when you're married, like, you have to share everything and they have to know. And we have agreed an allowance. I get a certain amount. But also, she said, we also realized that we spend money differently. So he's very frugal. He has to have a savings for a savings for a savings.
That's
but
me.
she's a spender, right? So she loves to buy presents. That's her love language, and she's amazing at it. She's the type of person to be like, we need to buy these people this and whatever else, and it works. But they've had to come to an agreement because of how they spend so differently. It's taken me a very long time to understand an allowance. I now do. Maybe it's because I'm older and I want to get married. I don't know. But I think there's something that, as we don't talk about those realities about shared accounts, what that means, the dynamic of that, like how much access do you have to the money? What does that mean for your relationship? So even when Kojo was saying that I would advise women to have a secret account, she's opposed to it. She's like, that brings secrecy. She's like, everything is out in the open. So yeah, this is something that we should all be discussed later in other conversations about money management and relationships and in marriage. What does that look like? Because that's a good conversation. I don't know where I stand so far, but
I mean, listen, last few minutes, and we're gonna jump off. But I think this is a very good conversation, and I think different couples like different things, but I think communication is key. I think it's important. Transparency is also important as well. It helps with keeping a relationship in a safe, healthy place. But Jay, give us a benediction. We're gonna go because the time has gone over. So give us a benediction. We'll talk behind the scenes anyway, but yeah, give us a benediction and we'll jump on.
I'll just keep it light. Thank you, I guess, those that have left. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gents. Thank you, everyone in the chat for contributing to this very spicy conversation. It's been a challenging one. This is one of the conversations that we do need, ones that do allow us to express, but also allow us to think. Because these are real situations that happen in real relationships and marriages, especially this one that we're talking about now with how you manage the family finances. We haven't got time to go into it. I've got a few thoughts myself, but just keep tuning in. Just keep, just understand none of us are on the red pill side or the pink pill side. We just have thoughts that we want to express. So thank you, Kojo, as well, for bringing us together with the UK panel. We look forward to see you and Precious flirt on Saturday as well. It's always wonderful when we see it. It's been great. It's been great. But when it comes to finances, do what works for you. Agree with your husband or your wife and just continue. No one else's opinion matters. If it works for you and you're able to build and be successful and wonderful, go ahead. Because yeah, whatever works for someone else does, honestly.
Love that. Thank you, Jay. And thank you for the encouragement to flirt. Listen, well, guys, we're gonna see you guys tomorrow for another riveting live as well. Make sure you guys stay locked and saluted. We'll see you again very, very soon. Great conversation from the chat and from the panelists as well. And I really did appreciate the candid conversation. Got a little bit spicy, but what is food without a little bit of spice? Eh? Much appreciation, much love. We'll see you guys very, very soon. Ta-ra.